Okay, folks, gonna do some painting here on a Saturday afternoon. So, still continuing to work on the same project I've been working on, which is the galloglass here. We're up to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 figures complete. And, well, we need to do some painting, some silver on these two guys. And then they'll be complete. But that's 7. This is the 8th guy, and here's the other 4. So we're going to see what we can knock out of these. Let's get everything back in the proper place and bring the wet palette up here. And we had just this morning I did a little bit of work. Didn't get a whole lot done, but I did do some. Finished up this one figure that I did not get a chance to finish up yesterday. And let's see. We're not going to need much of this silver. We just need to, I call it silver, but that's not what it is. It's the blue one. Iron breaker. So we did the null and oil wash on it, on just the metallic part there, and then we're going to put some of this on there. Let's go over here to Silver Things corner, pull some of this out and put that away again. And we're just going to clean this up some. All right, he's done. And then this guy right here. Okay, so that is 7 of these guys complete of the 12. And we've already started working on number 8. Number 8's here. We're working on his flush, so that's the next guy that we're going to do. Okay. We should still have these colors awake from this morning. Find a spot here to make our flush blend. go ahead and go to this with some of this. And let's paint the fingers and stuff on there. I actually didn't realize there were this many Essex figures that actually had eyes that were cast in. So an actual, like an eyeball. So when they go and do that, you're gonna have to do the paint. You're gonna have to paint them because you can't just leave them like a little sliver of darkness, or it's just not gonna look right because they protrude. Not every figure, just some of them. So. This just happens to be one of those that has that. And let's see, we got a thumb back here. We decided this guy was going to be bare-legged underneath his boots. So we got some flesh down here. Okay. Man, tired. Had to do yard work this morning, so went out to breakfast with the daughter and came back and did some yard work. Had some lunch and now I'm falling asleep even though I'm drinking coffee, but I want to get done with these guys. I'm ready to start moving onto the next thing. All right, so let's add more of the sunny skin tone here. Okay. And then I think at this point we can probably just add some white to lighten that up. If I do this, make those fingers pop out. Now, I think it pretty much cuts it for the flesh there. We need to do his belt, which will tie in with his scabbard. And there's not a whole lot left in this guy, but yeah. And as always, you guys got any questions or anything? There we are, Joe. Yep, back to the meat grinder. I am. Um, Todd, it's almost as if you were there all night. If only. Well, I kind of did. I think I didn't get to bed till about 11, and I was back up at 5. I painted a little bit this morning, probably from maybe 5:30 to 8:30, 3 hours, and I didn't get hardly anything done in 3 hours because I wasn't filming this. I was just kind of putzing around looking at talk shows and stuff. So I didn't want to do this, my dissertation back here and wake the girls up. So I'm a lot more efficient doing this. Even if it was like last night where I was getting sidetracked, it's still more efficient than kind of doing my own thing. So now let's look at these other figures that are similar to these guys. This guy has like the mahogany belt. This guy has like the khaki one. This one has a mid-range one. Okay, let's do this one in a lighter color. Just trying to mix it up a little bit. Try to spice these guys up a little bit. Because honestly, they're good castings, but they're a little on the boring side. You know, the face is the same for all of them. It's like, oh look, they're quadruplets and they're all going to war. And they're all swinging axes. Holy crap. Okay, so let's go ahead and do. It does feel like I was up all night. I can take a nap anytime I want. I'm just take one right now. Oh man, let's see. Let's get the dark shade here for that for the belt. Yeah, I had to try to squeeze in the yard work there because you never know when the rain's coming. I mean, I know rain's coming today, so I didn't want to put it off and not be able to do that. So, um, or it would be really challenging next time. So now we're good for a couple weeks again. Man, all right, lightening this up. There's not a lot of color you can add on this because he's basically wearing a helmet and a fully armored chainmail knee-length coat, and so all pretty much you can do is make the belt a different color, the boots, and his walrus-like mustache. That's about it. That's all you could do, and I think we're gonna make this guy blonde. Is what I think what we're gonna do with this guy. I think that's what looks like the case here. We need to bring this up, say one more shade. Man, this yawning is killing me. I'm putting myself to sleep. I had enough coffee. There it is. There's the bitchin' chair. Snap, crackle, pop. Okay, right, let's do the axe shaft. The axe handle. Okay, let's go with, so it should be fine. Will we get something new here? Nope. Yeah, I wish I got some kind of a notification when somebody wrote something new. I just kind of have to press this button and see if that's how it is. If there's something there. So if you see the camera shaking, that's what's going on there. All right, this is desert yellow. No, tan yellow. All right, and we're just gonna use some brown for the darkener. Oh man, you're killing me, Smalls. So as I mentioned yesterday, the plan is to do some filming on Monday. So I'm not sure how many people are gonna show up, but we're gonna film anyways. So, and I'm not gonna tell you what the theme is because if we have to change it for some reason, then, then we got faulty information here. Oh man. I don't know if I'm gonna be able to do this. I'm so freaking tired all of a sudden. Okay. And we're gonna put more of this on here. Okay. Maybe douse your head with some ice water. Maybe that should help. That should wake you up. Yeah, I don't know what it is. I don't. I'm not sure that that's. I'm super groggy, and I've had enough coffee today. Um, it was hot outside, but it wasn't that. I didn't get that much radiation that I should be falling asleep. But we'll wake up, damn it. Okay, so let's let's go ahead and lighten this guy up a little bit on his the shaft of the axe. And take some white to it. Find it ironic that I'm painting totally fine at 10 o'clock at night, but 2 o'clock in the afternoon and I'm falling asleep. Okay. Let's go ahead and paint the metallic on them. Where is our good buddy Lead Belcher? Alright, so let's go ahead and paint up this. The axe head. His helmet. Okay, we got that. Let's come over here and do his acorn helmet. Okay. Okay, that's on there. Okay, boots and mustache. I mean, that's it. Um, let's see. Okay, let's go ahead and go with this. I may have to actually take a little break, folks, and take a nap, believe it or not. Maybe the sun just took it out of me. That's the only thing that makes sense. It's not like I had some huge meal. Ugh. Well, there's worse things that could be happening than you're falling asleep. That's pretty painless. Put some black on here. All right. Gonna put some of that right here. Darken it up. And all the boots are gonna be this color. Whole thing. Okay, that's enough of that color. Then let's come over here and lighten this up some. This guy has his boots that have the top of them folded down, kind of like Three Musketeers style. So he's ahead of his time, living like it's the 17th century. Okay, and this should be able. The next one just goes straight from here. And white's drying up really, really fast here. Not sure why. I mean, I got the ceiling fan going, but I've had the ceiling fan going before. Okay, so Todd says, oh, hold on a second here. We got a bunch of other things. Okay, Todd says, I'm currently reading through Fistful of Lead, Bigger Battles, and building an army list to play a vassal game. I'll probably broadcast part of it. Okay, There's probably a DBA Vassal module. I'll need to look at that up. So, yes, there's a thing called not DBA Online. What is it? Under the tabletop, virtual tabletop, there's a module for DBA 3.0, and I played once with one of the developers from Spain, and I figured, well, I was getting it, and I'm like, okay, well, this might be a chance to, because obviously I'm very familiar with DBA 3.0. I'm not familiar with the virtual tabletop. I forget what it's called. It's electronic tabletop, virtual tabletop, one of those things on there. But there's a module for it. And so I played with them one night, and I figured it would be really handy to play with somebody from Europe because I wake up early and it'll be later in the day for them, right? So most people tend to not wake up at crazy times like I do, which is like 5 a.m. every morning. But I've only been able to get together with him once, so he's got a kind of an awkward working schedule. But I did play once. I wanted to play with somebody who knew how to use that module so that I don't get frustrated with it and just say the hell with it. But I've only had a chance to play it once. But believe it or not, I don't really have a lack of gaming here since we get together every week. And that isn't an issue. As a matter of fact, the problem I was having is too many people would show up for DBA. If I had more than 3 people, I couldn't film the games because there was just too many games to do round robin, and I can't do more than one at once. So we kind of had an accident that happened last week, and that is we had a certain amount of people that we thought were going to be there, and we actually ended up having 2 more than normal. So what we found that out after the fact, and we were already filming. So the benefit that it had was I kind of had to make it work. And even though we couldn't see every single matchup, we still were able to do 4 rounds. So what we were looking at doing is 2 people play off, and then another 2 people play off, and then the winners end up playing each other, and there's your 3 games, right? But we got a 4th game in, so I think that's what we're gonna do. Is because I'd rather film a game than not film the game. So, but yeah, there is a virtual tabletop or whatever it's called, but I only got a chance to play it one time. Let's see. Is that the what palette? Yes, this is the red grass palette here that I got about a year ago. I'm very happy with it. 40 by 20 base, and how many figures on each? There you go, tabletop simulator. That's what it is. 40 by, well, it depends on what the stand is. 40 by 20s, you could have auxilia, you could have fast auxilia, or you could have solid auxilia. Solid auxilia is 4 figures, and fast auxilia is 3. The skirmishers are also on the same stand. There's only 2 figures on that. Hello, Todd. 636. Wish I had the problem of too many people showing up. Yeah, that's crazy and cool. You have too many players. Cool thing that it's a small footprint game. Yeah. Yeah, good thing is that you can finish a game in, no more than an hour. So we were kind of disorganized in the standpoint that lots of people came in but we still were able to knock out 4 games, and I think it was under 3 hours, slightly under 3 hours. So, I mean, we even had a dog that showed up. Like, I wasn't expecting that. I'm like, I thought it was really chaotic. And then I watched it afterwards and yeah, it's not bad. So if we can handle all that kind of stuff happening, we're going to film every week. So we're at least playing once a week. So you guys should get at least every 7 days around a DBA stuff. And we're trying to mix up what the subject matter is. So we did the first installment of the Diadakoi, I forget what they're called, Alexander's successors. I'm hopeless with the Greek words. I have nothing to remember them by, how to pronounce things in German or French or Spanish or English I can handle, but Greek and other things I'll remember one day and forget something else. But we did the first installment of 4 battles. We're going to play through all the successors of Alexander and the battles they did. We did 4 of those, and we didn't want to just do. There's probably going to be 3 or 4 video sets of those before we get through all of them. We're trying to do them chronologically, and but we didn't want to keep hitting that because it might be a subject matter that may not interest everybody. So we'll be mixing up different things. Again, we're going to be gaming on Monday. Should be filming that, and it will not be Alexander's successors. That probably won't be until maybe later. If we get together twice next week, maybe we can do that later on in the week. But if not, it'll have to wait till the following week. So if you guys are sitting on the edge of your seat to watch more of those battles, I know they're kind of popular. I know a lot of... it's kind of hard to gauge what people's interest is in different things. See, I'm waking up a little bit with the questions. Thank you. I don't want to fall asleep. Sleeping is a waste of time. I got things to do. It's hard to gauge people's interest because I know some people that, for instance, are only interested in 100 Years War stuff. I know some people that only do like Romans and stuff like that. We're pretty much in every area. So that's not really a problem for us. So try to mix it up so that we don't have too much of one theme. So I need to watch more of your vids. Do you make some how to play? You know the game so well. Yeah, I'm still finding new stuff about it. I'm right on the cusp of 2,000 games of all versions of DBA. Because I keep track of all my games and also keep track of my face-to-faces. The face-to-faces are probably running about maybe 50 games behind that. You know, it's like if I play a big battle DBA game with multiple people, I don't count that as one of my regular games, but it's still a DBA game. So, yeah, I have if you look on, I don't know if it's on the YouTube page yet, because I did it on the Facebook Live, but we had a new player come in and it's like a 3-hour long video of how to play. It's just, I don't want to do stuff on rules because the way these rules are written, I can do my best job and I still leave something off. And it's really, 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 really frustrating from my standpoint to go through all the trouble of making a video and then still leaving something off because there's information about them in every area. So what we've started doing is, I don't know if you've noticed, the way we filmed now is instead of doing, okay, this is your matchup, and we do the music and we do the pan over the figures and stuff like that, and boom, we get started. We've been doing the 3 or 4 battles all as one video, and in each one of them we show how we set up the terrain and everything. So each one of them is kind of a how to play thing, but it's impossible to cover everything in one of the videos. It's just impossible. It's just impossible. You end up leaving stuff off. So, so I want to steer away from those type of things because what you don't want is for me to be really disappointed with the video quality that I do and then just say, fuck it, I'm not going to do anymore. That doesn't benefit anybody. So we've started doing the videos where you can see every battle from the beginning from the standpoint of we roll initiative, pick board size, that kind of thing. It's a great game, but it's organized horribly. It's just stuff is just never repeated. So they might describe like something about like what size stand something is in one area and it's never repeated again. So you got to find out where the rule isn't at, or you know, if you don't know where the rules are located, you got to go find out where it isn't. So, which is a shame because we've had a hell of a fun time with them because of you can get stuff done in an hour. You know, you have an accomplishment. Every game is finished. Think of all my games. I've only drawn one game, and that was in a tournament in and the guy just wanted to just take too long asking questions for the referee, and the referee was one that he called the time on it. So I've got over 1,900 games and only one draw. So that says a lot. So anyhow, that's when I realized we like to do a 1 hour time limit in the tournaments that we do, but I really want everybody to finish every game. So some battles are going to be over in like 12 minutes, and some are going to last an hour and 12 minutes. So the main thing is making sure people aren't bored and they don't drift off and do something else. That tends actually not to be a problem with our game group, because we're always interacting, at least with some of the people that are playing. So, but I mean, like at a convention. Missed a little bit of the dry brushing here on the side of his cough that he's wearing. So we want to get that before it's too late. And then we got the mustache on this guy to paint. And I think he's done. I missed part of the front of his helmet. I did a shoddy job on that. Okay. Right, mustache. What did we say? He was blonde? Bring out the blonde. Let's get... Yeah, we could use this beige. That'd be all right. I'll go back for the Facebook video. Is that under a group? I'll move it over to. I will move. I think I moved it onto the YouTube thing. So yeah, that's what confuses me about DBA. I get the sense that it's easy, but then I hear people talk about it and it sounds very difficult. It's just the way it's organized. Some people complain about his wording. The wording isn't the issue. The issue is just how the rules are organized. And it's one of those, I'd love this to go and try another set of rules, but man, my brain's burned out on this set. I just don't want to go to something else and have to relearn it. Because it's not perfect. There's some things that I have an issue with, and it's just mostly because it's so damn abstract. But at the same time, we just kind of learn to live with it. I've invested too many brain cells on it really to move on when it comes down to it. So, but yeah, it's simple, but it's not. The things that make it difficult are how the rules are organized. And these set of rules, the latest version, are better than any of the previous ones, but still, they're organized, not very user friendly. The game is abstract, which means that unlike other set of rules, like well, I know you played Advanced Squad Leader. Advanced Squad Leader, in my opinion, is not abstract at all. It's very, very common sense. So you might not be able to find a set of rules, but then might be a question may come up and you need to look up the rules and you can't find it. So you make your educated guess, and at the end of the day, when you do find it a couple days later, you find out that you actually got it right. In DBA, it's exactly the opposite. It's you find it and then, oh, we did it 180 degrees from what we would have thought, because it's difficult for some of us to wrap their head around an abstract game. So, but with all that said, you sit down, you play a game, you don't have to move, you're done in an hour, you play with your figures, nobody touches your folks, so if you're worried about playing with other people to damage your stuff, you don't have to worry about that. There's not that many pieces to build. You get to learn about new periods. Yeah, all the above, And it's gamey in that you could have Irish fighting samurai, but it doesn't bother me. It doesn't bother me. It's a good game. I don't think it's a good simulation, but anyhow, that's just my thoughts on it. So I'm not really griping, just come more like telling it like it is. It's I don't mind the different nations that you get in a tournament. You've got Irish fighting Japanese from with a 1,000-year difference between the two forces. That doesn't bother me. Now I couldn't do Flames of War because I'm a World War II nut. And well, I couldn't do Flames of War for multiple reasons, but I couldn't do that and like play Germans on Germans or Americans on, British or, one of their tournaments. That would just rub me really the wrong way. But since this isn't World War II, I can do this. So, but the best way is play with somebody who already knows how to play, because I don't know how anybody would have been able to learn how to play that set of rules if they had not taught me or given me the building blocks. The big other problem I have is I've played before I started playing DBA 3.0. I think at that point I had like 800 games of DBA in, so I had to unlearn a bunch of stuff and relearn. It's still the same game. It's still mentally the same game, but there's differences in it, and you'll go assuming that the rule is the same from previous versions, and it isn't. And we've almost got all that out of our system, but it still creeps up from time to time, and it's frustrating because we want to play the game the way it was intended to be played. So don't really have an agenda as far as well, I don't want to use that, or make up our own rules. But that's the difficult part, is you gotta unlearn stuff that that you might have gotten used to. And this guy's done now. So now we've got, is this the eighth one? Is this the eighth galloglass? Which I didn't realize. I had to go back and correct some of my spellings. I'm sure I missed one. Galloglass is Gallo, no W, Glass. Gallo. I guess it'd be like that wine, right? That cheap wine. Yeah, I thought it was Gallo, like send him to the gallows. But no, there's no W in it. So go figure. All right. So let's see here. What else we got? I just skimmed the vids on YouTube. You have some that look like you're explaining some of the basics. Yeah, if you go to my DBA 3.0 games and go to the earlier ones. The first 6 or 7 were filmed by somebody else, and I had been thinking about doing it, and he decided to do 6 or 8 videos. And after that, I'm like, well, hell, if this guy can do it, I can do it too. And then the rest is all history. But the earlier you go, the more I explain some of this stuff. So put it in the background. Work on whatever it is that you're working on. If you're working for stuff for Blitzkrieg Commander or whatever, and do some painting, and maybe look up from time to time, and maybe I'll say something interesting that'll catch on, and you'll get the gist of what the game is. But it's a lot of fun. So Chris K, hello Chris K. After watching you paint the Irish, I have dug out my pre-feudal Scots to paint up next. Had them about 10 years now. Yes, excellent. And with the pre-feudal Scots, they're actually an army that's on my short list. Try some of those techniques that I did with making, making these plain colored looking guys and dressing them up. In other words, the different shades of just really poor guys with linen, because those guys fit in really well with that type of thing. And they're not going to be super bright or anything. I haven't looked into them a whole lot, but that might be one of those that that's how I would paint them as well. I have to look. They might be one of those that have like maybe the trim at the bottom of their shirts are like in a different color, almost like I think the Ostrogoths did stuff like that too. But I haven't really looked at the pre-feudal Scots. But that's kind of cool army list They've got some fast pikes and interesting stuff. So cool. That's another. I always like seeing people getting motivated to produce stuff, because at least for me, this is really relaxing. This is therapy. So hopefully other people are getting therapeutic value out of this as well. So um, that's that's going to be my prescription for mental health. Go watch 2 videos and take an aspirin and call me in the morning. Oh man, let's see. Todd says, do you pretty much try to play historical armies, or will you play different eras against each other? We do everything. We do match pairs. What we normally do is, like when I finish an army, we'll sit down and we'll play all their enemies in a row. So like, let's say it's a night where only Mitch can come over. I'll bring my new army and he'll play every one of them in sequence, and they might be balanced games or they might be unbalanced games. So we do that, and then we also like to do theme stuff, like where you have to have at least half your army has to be skirmishers, or half your army needs to be knights, or that kind of stuff. So you may have some Chinese army versus a medieval army from Western Europe, but that's fine, because as long as they meet those parameters, it doesn't bother me. It doesn't bother me that what we try to avoid is civil wars, though. So I don't like seeing the same Roman army fighting the same Roman army, or they're just boring to do that. I mean, if they happen in a tournament, if somebody brings 2 of the same army to a tournament and they have to fight each other through the Swiss match process, it is what it is. You have to fight the battle, but I try to avoid those situations for everybody's benefit. That way you can experience some kind of a different interaction. So, and let's see, what else does you say? If I were ever to play Ancients Classical, this seems like a good choice because the armies are small and the footprint, so that investment would be limited. Absolutely. Okay, Chris K says, I did try to copy your style, but it did not really look any different. Been painting for 40 years, so I guess I'm stuck at a system that works for me. Yeah, no, I mean, I get that. I actually did do something different. I talked about it in one of my videos. And I changed my painting style, to quote Mitch, ever so slightly. I did some black lining. Now, I didn't do it on everything, but like I did it on this guy here. I put a thin black line between his shirt and his hand, and I did some around between the hose and the foot. And you can't really tell right now. You'll have to wait for the video for the pictures to come out. But I did do a little bit of it, but the rest I'm going to leave the same. And I like it a little bit more. That's easy. That's not that big of a thing. I don't want to put it between every single color, but when you're like, shirt and then pants, put a line there. And then when pants and say boots, put a line there, that kind of thing. So I've seen other people do it, and I like how it looks. So I may very well be doing that moving forward. I don't know if it makes a big dramatic difference, because I try not to paint up to that black line anyways in my painting style, but it does make it a little bit more dramatic. Like, okay, this ends here, and this other item of clothing or what have you starts somewhere else. So bam, we've got 8 guys done. Well, not completely, because we still need to I lost track of where this last guy is. He is he's this guy here. We need to put the Nuln oil on him. Let's go ahead and do that since he dried up a little bit, and then we'll go and tackle these last 4. I'm ready to just be done with these guys, because I want to move on to what am I going to do next? Well, it depends if the cavalry shows up. I'm going to do some Scottish Knights. I'm going to do the command stand. I can't do the Irish command stand because he's a light horse, and I'm waiting for those guys to come in. And I messaged him yesterday, and I got no response. So I don't know. It seems a little bit like they're asleep at the wheel. So I want to stop checking the mail every day, I ordered them almost 3 weeks ago, so they theoretically could already be en route to me. And they said they were running behind, but I was expecting they were running behind like difficult getting shipment through the mail, not producing them, but maybe it's a combination of both. But I'm going to keep painting this army and things of this army. So, we got lots of stuff to do with these folks, so. We got allies we can do. We got those Scots and Scots Isles allies. So we're going to be painting 3 more blade. See, this army is pretty wimpy, okay? But you can take a Scots Isles ally and take 3 Savoy out, 3 skirmishers out. So now you only have 3 skirmishers and add 3 more blade. So you could bulk this army up to the point where it could have a knight general, a cav, a light horse, 2 solid pikemen, a blade, and 3 Saloy. And then as an ally, take 3 more blade. That's a pretty good army. That's a pretty, you could play that guy in open. Now, you have an ally, so you've got issues with, managing your pips and stuff like that. But, that allows you to play these guys wimpy, a little hefty. Hey, wimpy, hefty, yeah. You could play them all kinds of different ways. So that was an appeal to them. And, and I like the fact that there could be Scots, there's Irish, and there could be Islesmen all in the same army. So that's fun, Got to get some of those accents down. So in the middle of a battle, I can, fight amongst myself and complain, when I roll poorly, that they're not, other guys aren't pulling their own weight. So, okay, wardrobe. Let's see. What would you suggest for Vikings and opponents? 15 millimeter model manufacturer suggestion. Well, it depends if you like pre-made armies. If you like pre-made armies, you're kind of limited. Vikings on pre-made armies, DBA armies. You've got Essex. You have what's the Italian company? One of the Italian companies. Let me think. Is it Bauida? They make Vikings that are pretty cool looking, and in DBA army packs. You could find them on eBay. You could go on eBay and go 15 millimeter DBA Vikings, and you're going to find probably a Viking pack. That's probably the easiest thing to do, and they should give you all options for that. As far as their opponents, probably the best opponent for them that would give you a decent battle would be the Anglo-Saxons or the Anglo-Danes. And other than Essex, I don't think anybody makes an army pack for them. Now, if you're going to buy them individual figures, if I'm going to build either one of those 2 armies, well, I wouldn't build a Viking army only because one of our players already has them, okay? But if I was going to build one of their opponents, the new figures that are about to come out at the end of this month, that are called Forged in Battle, their Anglo-Saxons are just gorgeous. I'm sitting on my hands not purchasing them because I was tempted to look at them and possibly do an Anglo-Saxon morph that includes the Anglo-Danes. I don't have to paint that many extra elements, and I have 2 extra armies. But it's like 3 units of blade and a bunch of spear or hordes and stuff like that. So, that's who I would recommend if you absolutely just don't want to have any extra figures. You got to go with either Essex or Baueda. I think that's who it is. Let me see. Let me see if I got the name of that company right. I can't access my phone right now because I'm using it to film. And I'm looking here. I've got one of their packs of who the company is. They have a distinct style. I happen to like them. Yeah, I think it's called it. I just gotta find my Normans. I have a pack of those guys that I bought for Normans. And I got so many figures, it's ridiculous. through here. And I think that's who it is. But you'll find them if you search on eBay for 15 millimeter DBA Army. And then put Vikings in there. They're one of the ones that have that make those packs. So if you want them pre-made, that's pretty much your only two in town that I can think of right now on the fly. But that doesn't scare me. I like to paint the guys that I like to paint. I don't mind Essex figures. I don't like Essex Army packs. I feel like you don't get the variety you should get. They make more poses and you just don't get them sometimes. I've had 3 or 4 experiences with them and pretty much hate myself every time that I got any of their Army packs, because they make figures, but it's like almost like they throw in the wrong figures, or somebody's making them, they don't know what they're doing. But I would be totally comfortable buying the Baueda Viking Army. They're nice figures. They get a good variety of them, and they look pretty cool. So I guess that's my final answer. That's who I would go with. But yeah. Let's see. What about Samurai? Same question. Are there any kits combos out there? Only built-in Army packs. Only Essex for the Samurai. I have Samurai, but mine are from Peter Pig. I got them when I first saw them at Historicon in 2007? 2007 or 2009. It's one of those two. And I saw them, they looked beautiful, I turned around and I painted them immediately. It's like the only time I've ever like bought something and like painted it next. Like, okay, you guys are next, and moved them to the front of the queue. But yeah, the Samurai look really cool. Mine aren't DBA 3.0 compatible yet, so it's why you guys probably haven't seen them in any of the videos. I got to do some modifications to them, but unfortunately, the Samurai, the later Samurai only fight the later Samurai. So, and it's an army that doesn't have a whole lot of options. They have a lot of the same stuff. You know, they can't have any skirmishers. I think they can only have 1 bow unit total. So yeah, they're fun to paint and they look cool, but not the best variety there. So. Models and bases sold together, etc. Have you ever knocked over one of those tall pots? I do it all the time and put them in smaller ones. You talking about like this? I knocked over one of these the other day, and which explains this guy right here. I didn't make much of a mess. Unfortunately, half of it poured out, and it's a paint that's not easily replaceable because I can't walk into a store and pick up coat d'armes, but this was Russian brown or Russian uniform. And it's called Russian brown, but it's like the Russian World War II uniform. Yep, didn't get it on anything. I don't think I even got any on my hands. But it was one of those that I just fumbled it. And it was early in the morning. I just took my napkin and just went and just put it over it and soaked much of it up and moved on. But no, I don't spill very many things very often, thankfully. Because I'm really hard on myself. If I did, it'd piss me off. Forged in battle, make good World War II figs. Yeah, I haven't seen them, but their ancients are beautiful. They're absolutely beautiful. Coruscant has Vikings too. Yes, but they don't have army packs. So I didn't know that they had that. So. Yeah, Peter Pig World War II are great. Peter Pig have a unique look, though. They've got a bit of a Habsburg chin. So, yeah, so they fought the Koreans for a little bit, correct. But the DBA Army list stopped before that period. They stopped before the Warring States period in Japan. So like the list stops at 1542. So they don't fight the Yi dynasty Koreans yet, or the Ming. If it went later into the more Renaissance period where there's firearms and stuff, arquebuses, that kind of thing, then they fight the Ming and also the Yi dynasty Koreans. So that's why they kind of stopped short at that. But don't let that stop you. I mean, they could be neighbors, and if they haven't fought each other, you're still fighting contemporary things, So Yeah, I wouldn't build two samurai armies. I'd build a samurai, a Ming, or a samurai in the Yi dynasty. So, but samurai always a good choice. I love mine. I just haven't. They're just not 3.0 compatible, and they turned out really well. So, I built them with some archivist elements also to get into the Renaissance period as well. But anyhow, yeah, those are all pretty cool. When people get into DBA, they say, "Hey, what army should I build first?" The first thing I ask them, I said, "Well, what are you?" And then I actually got a confused look from somebody, like they didn't know what I was talking about. It's like, no, I mean, what's your background? I mean, are you English? Are you Scottish? Are you, what is your background? Because that's what you should, that's what you should build. I mean, that's what I did. I built my first army was feudal Spanish. So, and then I went and did the Moors next so that I had a match pair. And then I just kind of went in every direction after that. But, if you're German, build a German army, I mean, unless you hate who you are. Maybe that's not. Damn it, I wish I wasn't Polish. Well, don't build a Polish army. I don't think there's too many of those people. Everybody likes who they're, what their background is. So at least I seem to think so. But that's my first recommendation, is so that you have kind of a tie-in, But well, yeah, there's all really good stuff. Um, let's see, tall pots. Are there army-less books? No, everything's in one book. Screw the codex mentality. And it was an army book that was very difficult to get a hold of. This is the hardback one that has issues with them because their printing method. Came out in 2014. Is they would print a bunch and then they would send them out to their distributors and then they would run out of it and then they would have to do another printing. Now it's available on Lulu. So this actually was like $38, which is kind of expensive for a book that doesn't have anything in color. It doesn't need to have anything in color, but it's kind of expensive. Now I believe it's available on Lulu for under 20. So it is soft, but it's the same size and everything. And actually the Lulu paper is, I think, better than this one. This one's kind of glossy and it's a little slick, but it's really thin and tears easy. So it didn't take long for me to booger up one of the pages. But so I recommend the Lulu one. And if you go to Lulu, which is, I think if you just do a search for LULU, okay, and it's a publishing on demand type of site. I've gotten stuff from them before, and just do DBA 3.0, and you'll see that I believe within a week you should have it. They print it pretty quick, so that's what I would recommend. I'm not sure if these are even available anymore, but the rules are exactly the same. It's the same version of them, just a lot easier to spend half the price on it. It's half the price, and you get it relatively quick, So, yeah, so highly recommend that. It's a great set of rules. It's a great game. And there's just lots of stuff to learn about periods and stuff. At least that's what I do. It was a catalyst for me to learn about different things that I had only cursory knowledge of. Because I've always been into history, so it's not like I didn't know anything about the Vikings. But if I go on a Viking project, yeah, I'm going to read about different guys, and I want to build this guy's army, and okay, cool, and a lot of the stuff colors and stuff you just have to pull out of your butt, but that's okay. Depends on the army. So, good QRS charts to download. There's a site that focuses on DBA as well. Yes, there's the best chart for is if you go to the Society of Ancients. There's a Society of Ancients page, and that has the best the data sheet one has the best one. I'll send you a message privately when I find out exactly which one it is, and it's actually in full color too. So it's really easy to. Whoever put that one together really knew what they were doing. That's an excellent one. But believe it or not, that's the easy part of the rules. The easy part of the rules is the charts. Memorizing how fast things move and what their factors are. That makes sense. It's the conforming and lining up with other guys that's weird about the game. I think the game would have been a lot better, and I've said this probably 20 times. I think the game, if there's one thing I would change in the game, is that you could have combat with the units like this. They wouldn't have to be like this, lined up perfectly. That they could fight somehow like this. That they could be like this and still fight. Okay? That's the part that seems really abstract and hokey, especially when I'm explaining it to new players. Other than that, I would have made the skirmishers shoot at a distance. Distance may only be like half a base width. Skirmishers and light horse shoot at a distance. Other than that, I'd leave everything the way it is, which I think is saying a lot. I mean, I think that, you know, um, it has a lot going for it. It's just those two abstractions that are hard to wrap your head around. I don't mind that each one of these guys represents a lot of folks. This isn't two guys, not even 20 guys. This is like 500, 600 guys on this stand. So when you start looking at that, the decisions you're making are like the army general of the entire army. Like, okay, I want these guys kind of over here. Once you kind of realize, oh, that's the role that you're playing in this game, it's easier to digest and figure out that that's what you're supposed to be doing. It's not a tactical game, so it does have some significant abstraction. Okay, so the next set is we're going to be doing these clowns guy, which I call this the guy that sits at Battery Park, and he's the axe salesman. He's like, you want to buy an axe? I got an axe for you right here, an axe. Want to buy an axe? That's what it looks like. That's what the pose. It's a nice figure. Essex sometimes has some weird poses. Essex and some other manufacturers. But that's the cool thing with 15 millimeters. There's so many people that make these figures that if you just say, well, I don't like Essex at all. I want to use so and so. I want to use somebody different. You've got 3 or 4 different or more options for just about every army, other than the more obscure ones. So that's good. Some people like plastic figures. Some people like certain manufacturers that I can't stand. That's great. There's a little bit of everything for everybody. So yeah. A buddy of mine, when we were doing DBA armies, he couldn't stand having any extra figures at all. So he wouldn't do anything other than a pre-built army pack. I don't know why he couldn't handle having any extra figures at all. I'm like, okay, we'll put them in the pile. We'll find another use for them. I'll go to like a flea market at a convention and like, oh, I don't know who these guys are. I don't know when I'm going to use them, but for that price, I'm not leaving them there. And that's how I got a ton of extra figures. I got to the point where I probably don't have to pay any. I don't have to buy any more figures probably ever, and could probably build 30 or 40 armies easily. But I do buy them occasionally to add variety, or like in the case of these guys, I had the foot figures. I just didn't have any mounted ones. So, but yeah, Todd. I'll send you that link of that Society of Ancients. If you look up Society of Ancients, and I think there's under resources or something like that, they have a chart for that. But that's in my opinion the best one out there. So. But yeah, it's a great game. I first played it in 2004 and pretty much don't play anything else since then. And I'm a World War II guy. I'm not an ancients and medieval thing. So I think that speaks volumes about how good this game is. So, no, it's not perfect. That's okay. I mean, its biggest problem though is how it's organized, because it's not organized how a traditional board game rules or something like that would be organized. It's a little nothing's ever repeated. I think that's the problem. So if they talk about in a troop description something about spearmen that's unique to spearmen, when it comes up and say like let's say they do, for instance, they'll talk about some attribute of a particular unit, and when it comes to the part where that attribute would come into play, like if it advances after combat or something like that, something like that may not be addressed because it was addressed in the description of the unit at the beginning of the rules. It's stuff like that. Like, I don't know how they came up with that, with it doing it that way, because it just seems like it's a hell of a lot more work making sure you didn't repeat anything, But you know, Mike, how is everyone? Great. Which one of the millions of mics are you? I went through a time there that I knew like 7 or 8 mics personally, and it was kind of hard to keep track. I knew a lot of Mikes and a lot of Jeffs. So, but welcome. Taking a little break here from the painting. As a matter of fact, I'm going to use this as a little break, and I'm going to get myself some more water, because right now I'm talking a lot and my throat's a little dry. So I will be right back in about 2 minutes flat. Hang in there. Okay, so it's more like 3 minutes, but here we are. All right. Just water. Look at that. More people showed up while I left. That's a good sign. Like, all right, I'll get back. I'll get on your. I'll check out what you're doing, but I don't want to see you. That's what you call charisma. Let's see here. Oh, Kevin. Hello, Kevin. All right, Todd says the rule book is in my cart at Amazon for $18.42. Well, that's a good price. What is the Sue Barker book? It costs more than the rules, but sounds like it has some interesting content explaining the game while also providing a full example of play. I cannot recommend it because it does not have all the army lists. And she describes, I did pick it up, okay? I did pick it up because I got it on Kindle. So what that allowed me to do is have a version of the rules on my phone, so that when I'm somewhere without my rule book, it has the full rules in them, and they're the same rules, but it doesn't have all of the armies in them, army list in there. Like it might have like Alexander and like a couple of enemies, and then it moves on to Rome and a couple of enemies, and then like a medieval army, and So I just can't recommend it. I mean, I got it on Kindle because, like I said, I could play it on my phone and then look up the rules or something like that if I'm like traveling or something and decide not to bring them, and have like, oh, a thought about something. But I don't recommend them at all because and everybody that has bought them has come out kind of disappointed because it's not what they thought it was. So, I mean, you could always get both. Get the rules and then get the other version on Kindle, so you got them on your phone. Because there's no electronic version of the rules, unfortunately. But but anyhow, it's not going to have the army list and stuff like that. Like it might not even have the Vikings, so that would be terrible to buy that and not have the Vikings. So the most interesting thing is the army list. I mean, you could spend a lifetime looking through them, and I wonder who these guys are. And then you look them up on the internet, and then you're like, oh, these are painted this way, and what's their army list consist of? I mean, it's just a rabbit hole. The next thing you know, you're looking through all kinds of periods. So let's see. We have something else. Just learning DBA 3.0 and picked up a Mongol conquest army from Essex. Have any tips for painting in 15 millimeter and any other tips for beginning into historical? Okay, so yeah, just I've been doing these painting sessions, so maybe some people could get something out of it. But Mongol conquest, that's a lot of light horse. That's unfortunately, there's a couple of things that DBA doesn't do really well, and one of them is representing the Mongols because there's no distance shooting with light horse. So they still have to go into close combat. They have to match stand on stand. And they work okay when they're fighting other mounted, but the Mongols, when they're fighting someone that has foot elements, their interaction with the foot elements isn't represented really well. Not to discourage you, but which is why I actually don't have. I actually have tons of Mongols figures. I just haven't painted the Mongols yet because I just think they don't not represented really well in the standard game. There's a couple of house rules. I've thought about doing them, and yes, my Mongols are kind of on the short list. Well, what army isn't on the short list, right? I mean, I've got like 40 or 50 that I wouldn't mind building, but there's a couple of house rules I would implement to make the Mongols more Mongol-like. But that's kind of the shortcoming that they have is they cannot fire at a distance. Skirmish units don't fire at a distance; only bows do, and it's a little difficult to use them and behave in a Mongol-like fashion. But yeah, so I don't know if that was helpful, but I've got lots of painting stuff on here. That's a huge question. Tony will now have to go down to the rabbit hole. Perfect question for Tony. He can paint while going through his answer. Okay, well, let's get painting and going through my answer. Yeah, so there's lots of armies. When people go and say, hey, what's a good army for me to start with? I want to get into DBA. What's a good army for me to start with? Or invariably they'll say, hey, I just purchased an army. Here's the army I purchased for DBA. It's almost at least 50% of the time it's the Carthaginians. And I'm like, no, that's one of the worst armies you could get. Not because the army is bad, but because it's a very difficult army to use for beginners, and also it's an army that people expect to do really well because Hannibal, right? Okay, he kicked ass. 99% of the time he kicked ass. It was that 1% didn't work out so well. It was a 1% at the end, right? But the problem they don't understand is Hannibal made the army. The army didn't make Hannibal. So it's not a bad army, but it has a lot of troops that take finesse to use and a lot of conditions for them to excel well against many opponents. Okay, And it's not that I don't want people to buy it. I don't want people to try the game with an army that is more difficult to use before you have the basics down. And then they say, I hate this game. I don't want to play it anymore because these guys always, I don't do very well with them. Okay, perfect example. One of my favorite armies that I have, my Ottoman Turks. I absolutely love my Ottoman Turks, right? I built them about a year ago, so I'm an experienced player. I think I'm like 13 and 42 with them. They get their ass kicked all the time. But I built them at a time where I had, enough confidence that I'm not going to be discouraged by how they play. But I love the troop types they have. They're fun to play. They're fun to paint. They look great. They can't bring the bacon home. They come shorthanded many times. So I just don't want people to get discouraged by something like that. So that's invariably is one of the most popular armies is Hannibal's Carthaginians, and because people are attracted to the underdog, generally. That's just by my experience. So if people are doing World War II, they want to play Germans. If they're doing American Civil War, they want to play the South. At least in the South here, that seems to be the case. But people tend to like to play the underdog because it makes sense. Oh, let's see if I can do better than they did historically, right? I may not win, but can I do better than they did in real life? And the Carthaginians falls into one of those as well. But yeah, so when there's certain armies I tell people that, hey, if you're interested in getting into, this is the army I would recommend. And one of the armies I would recommend, I asked them, I said, are you interested in Roman stuff at all? And most people would be like, yeah, I'm kind of interested in Roman. Then I would suggest you would get the guys that the Carthaginians fought, which was the Polybian Romans. So the Scipio Africanus Romans, because they have some variety of troop types. They're really solid, real easy to use, and they fought just about everybody, okay? Or the Marian Romans, which are, the Julius Caesar Romans. They have a little bit less variety, but everybody's familiar with them and that kind of stuff. So if you get into something like the early Imperial Romans, like the guys that were in at the beginning of the battle with Gladiator, they're harder to use because they have half of their foot troops are auxilia, which are more complicated to use. They can get hosed easier, so it takes a little bit more finesse. It's not that army is not any good. It's just that I don't want new players to be discouraged. So, yeah, that's the problem with the Mongols. Is the Mongols are, and that's another thing. Is some people have told me. I said, well, it's not that they're not represented well in DBA. It's that what made the Mongols really good was how fast they moved and how they can catch people how they're able to catch people off guard, and they can disappear from one place and appear somewhere else, and you can't really do that within the battle of a DBA game. And the DBA game is just assumed that both armies came to fight with awareness that they were both there. So there's a lot of fog of war that's missing that might be an integral part of Mongol warfare. Does that make any sense? But that's kind of what I'm getting at. Is it's I think the Mongols, if you're fighting like knights or something like that, like say the Mongols versus the Teutonic Knights, you could probably play that game as is with DBA and be fine. That's probably a good matchup. But if they're gonna fight somebody like the Russians, okay? The Russians have a significant amount of heavy foot. They can have 4 elements of heavy foot or something like that. The Mongol light horse just can't deal with the heavy foot in DBA terms. It's not represented well, and in other games as well. It's not like it's just DBA. It's just they don't really jive really well. So, but if you pick an opponent for them, like let's say you're going to pick Mongols, and I want an opponent for the Mongols. If you pick somebody like the Ghaznavids, okay, which were one of the guys that were taken out while Genghis Khan was still around, the Ghaznavids have is kind of a light army. They only have maybe 2 units of heavy foot and would probably play okay. One of the problems with DBA with an army that is all of one particular type, like the Mongols. The Mongols are basically almost entirely light horse. Not entirely, but almost entirely. Is they have a thing called, I'm gonna explain this to you because you said you're a DBA noob. Is a thing called aggression. Okay, and aggression, what it means is what the likeliness is that you're the defender in the battlefield. That has an extremely high. Just give me 1 second to process. I'm going to paint this guy. Right, so we're going to do the yellow and then we're going to avoid the vest. The vest is kind of padded and we're going to do that in a different type of color. Gotcha. Okay, back to what I was saying. I'm a terrible multitasker. I apologize, but I'm a dude, so you know that's that's what I do. The Don't remember what I was saying. Oh, so aggression. Okay, so armies will have a number of aggression that's a number from 0 to 4. Okay, and that means how likely they are to be the aggressor in a matchup. So the first thing you do when you decide, okay, I'm going to play these guys and you're going to play those guys, is you roll a dice and you add your die 6 score to your aggression number. Whoever's number is higher is going to be the attacker. The other person will be the defender. So obviously, if you have an aggression 4, like the Mongols have, which is the highest they can have, they're more than likely almost always going to be the attacker, which means they don't get to place the terrain. Now, the terrain, there is some randomness to where the features are placed on the board. Okay, but you still, as the defender, get to pick how many of the features you want to use, and that's very important because if you have, say, a lot of troops that don't do well with woods and bad going terrain and that kind of stuff, and you're the defender and you have those type of troops, you just don't select a bunch of forest and you don't select a bunch of bad going terrain. So it doesn't matter where it lands, you don't have to play in it. Okay, so you still may not have control over which quarter it goes in, but it's the whole thing. You don't want to, if you're the defender and you don't want to fight in a forest, don't pick forest terrain. Okay, you have that control. When you're playing somebody with a high aggression like the Mongols, and that also has troops that basically need pretty clear terrain to be successful in, you're almost always going to be the attacker. Your opponent's almost going to want to throw forest and bad going terrain on top of you, and you don't have any skirmishers and heavy foot to be able to deal with that terrain. Does that make sense? And that happens all the time. Now, if you're fighting someone else who's also at aggression 4, now you have a 50-50 chance of getting the terrain that you want. So that's kind of a difficult thing to deal with as a new player. I know, I've been a new player, you know? So, and that's actually the same problem my Ottomans have. My Ottomans have a lot of light troops and they want pretty open terrain. They have some bad going troops, but they're also aggression 4. So they're basically going to get stuck in wherever they get placed. So yeah, that's the problem with the aggression 4 armies. So if I was going to recommend an army for someone new, incidentally, that's the same problem with the Vikings. Okay, Todd. So if you're going to get Vikings, you're going to have another aggression 4 army. You're never going to place terrain down. I think that is a lot better for a new player to buy an army that has either aggression 0 or aggression 1, because that way they get to practice also placing terrain down. If you have a high aggression army, you're never going to place terrain. The only thing you're going to, you're going to miss out on being able to put that terrain down unless you're fighting someone that's also a high aggression. Did that make any sense? But that's one of the hurdles that you have to deal with playing an army that's an aggression 4. So and it sucks because The armies that are aggression 4 are the one armies that everybody wants to play. Everybody wants to play Hannibal or Genghis Khan or or Tamerlane, Pyrrhus, Alexander the Great, guys that were aggressive and were always on the offense, and those are the aggression 3 and 4 armies almost all the time. So it's kind of a difficult hurdle to get over. Just something to keep into perspective. So. Okay, Todd says, what about the DBMM books I'm also seeing? Don't worry about DBMM books. That's for a different rule set. DBMM is like more zoomed in. So, 1 unit of skirmishers in DBA would represent like 4 or 6 units in DBMM. It's a totally different game. Kelly Davis, I'm thinking about getting a book 4 army. What are some recommendations? Okay, Mike, even if the Mongols aren't a super great army, I'm sure I'll still have fun with it, at least painting them. I'm going to get good at painting horses. Yeah, you get a lot of horses. They are, I don't know if you've seen any of my videos, but what I've lately been doing is making armies that are really poor and have less and kind of unextravagant clothing, look varied in appearance by alternating what colors I mix in, like these Irish, the Kharij Arabs that I did before them. The Mongols are definitely on my list to paint because of exactly that. You're not going to have guys that have really garish clothing all the time. Most of them are kind of poor and wear whatever, but you can't, I don't want to paint everybody in linen that's this color, when I can vary it a little bit and have all kinds of different colors. So that's an appeal for me as a painter for sure. You're tempting a bunch of us to get started. You're gonna have it, Uncle Tony's on live classes. This is Games Workshop used to sell silks paints that would look great for Chinese or Mongol shirts. Don't think they still make them. Yeah. DBA Napoleonics opinions. I played DBN a few times. Napoleonics just isn't my period. I've played it. I just don't think it's very Napoleonic. It's a good game, but it's. I thought about doing it, but Mitch has he has a ton of Napoleonics, and they're based for another rule set, and he didn't want to rebase them. But it's fun because you still get to work on the same DBA mechanics, but it's not DBA 3.0 compatible. So there's a lot of things in DBA 3.0 that aren't in DBN, for instance, and obviously the other way as well. So. Several different Mongols as armies. Yes, if I'm building Mongols, the very first thing I would do would be I have Sung Chinese, okay, and the Mongols, when they came in and knocked on China's door, the first guys they knocked down are the Jin dynasty, which was also a proto-Mongol type army that came in and knocked out, basically split the Sung in half. They went to war with the Sung in, let's just say 1200, about 1200 AD. And the Sung didn't respond great and basically lost half of their empire. Everything north of the Yangtze River, the Jin dynasty set up, okay? And they were a nomadic type peoples. They came out of the same Manchuria, came in, and they set up their own dynasty. I may be off by some of the years, but anyways, before the Mongols came in, they took out half of Sung China, north of the Yangtze River, and they set up their. That's the thing with when you go over and you're an outsider and you take over China. Hold on one second, I need to respond to something here. No, sorry about that. Okay. That's the problem when people come in and attack China. If they are successful, they realize that they like all the comforts that the Chinese court have, and they kind of get sloppy. And that's what happened to the Jin. The Jin came in and they're really tough fighters. Like, I like all this concubine stuff and all these fine silk trade and all this kind of stuff. And they kind of got all lush and stuff. And then the Mongols came and knocked on their door from behind, and the Mongols beat the shit out of them and took them over. So now the Sung are looking across the river, and now they see Genghis Khan there on that side, and they eventually fought a war with them, and they fell as well. But when the Mongols took over the Jin, they start becoming not the Mongol conquest army anymore. They start the Yuan dynasty. And what that means is they have, along with all the Mongol horse, they also have some Chinese foot. So I am going to, when I build my Mongols, I will start building the elements of the Mongol army that I can use with my Chinese foot to make the Yuan dynasty. That, and I don't know anybody that has that army, so that's kind of cool. And those guys also fight my Sung, because eventually they did take over the Sung and took them out as well, and Kublai Khan, and the rest is all history. So but anyhow, but that's there is an other option you could do. Like you said, there's several Mongol armies. You have the traditional one that's the Mongol conquest that comes in and just wipes the floor with everybody. So I'm gonna try and get a buddy of mine into the game. So to start, we'll probably just use some chits or tokens to learn the game. Even if I don't get to use my Mongols, they'll still be a good display. Yeah, play with stands, play with extra stands, and it's still a good game. It's a good pip management game. So yeah, but I just don't get discouraged that because the problem with the Mongols isn't that they're light, but they also need to get good pips for maneuvering. And we've had this discussion before in some of our games that it's more important to get a good pip die roll for maneuvering than it is a combat roll. You don't want to roll a 1 for pips for maneuvering, because you have to suffer and make some really hard decisions. So, but that is part of the game, and actually what makes the game is the management of that. And sometimes you're the one that gets the bad pip rolls, and sometimes it's your opponent. But they are on my to-do list. They just don't get discouraged by them, or I'll build another army that would be a good fight for them. Because you can buy an army that is like these Irish I'm painting. It's a crappy army, but I can fight against other crappy armies. You don't have to fight. It isn't. You don't have to build an army that's good against everybody. You're always going to find something out there. It's kind of like rock paper scissors. If you have a scissors, you can really tear up paper, but that rock comes along, you're not going to win those games. So. And I think that is a strength that the game has. It's not like you can build some super army that no one can beat it. As a matter of fact, usually the more awesome an army is, its antithesis or what could beat it the most is really a crappy army. Like you've got something like classical Indians. Classical Indians can have 3 elephants and bows and all this kind of stuff, but if you have an army that has a bunch of skirmishers, they could give them headaches because they can really neuter those elephants. The skirmishers can. So I think that's one of the strengths of the game, is that you can't just get some army that beats everybody, and because then you would have everybody building that one army, and it's just kind of boring. So yeah, you're a proponent of using stands to learn if you like a game. Yeah, or watch some of my videos. I'll have over 100 videos there of DBA games. I don't know if they're all DBA games, but there's a lot. And we're doing a new set every week, so we don't have any on Mongols because we don't know Mongols, but but there's some stuff on there, and check out a video. I've got a video on there that is the Magyar versus, who did they fight? With the Lombards? One of my one of my games has the Magyar in them, and the Magyar are similar to the Mongols in the respect that they have 3 cavalry, and I believe the rest of them is light horse. So they're very Mongol-like. But check that out and see how they did. Yeah, except I think they're aggression 2. So that's but they're very Mongol-like in their army structure, the troop types that they have and the quantities that they have of them. Okay, so let's. I'm not going to paint 4 guys at once. We're going to do just one guy at a time. I find this a lot more satisfying. I know I'm weird like that. I'm the only one that I know that does that sort of thing, but I want to have, at the end of a painting session, something to show for it. But it is a great game. I played my first game of it in 2004, and I haven't played another miniatures game since. And I'm not an ancients and medieval guy. Well, I am now, but I wasn't before. I'm not an ancients and medieval guy, says the guy who has 120 pounds of 15 millimeter lead in the closet. Now, it's fun reading about all these civilizations that, you just learn different things about them. Really, really cool. So, it depends on the rule set. There's a rule set called Armati, which actually was what I was planning on playing first. I went to a con in 2004 and they had an Armati tournament. I had gotten the rules about 1996 and never could get into playing it or building armies for it because I'm one of those people that I've got to play the game before I can sit and read the rule book so I have a frame of reference. Otherwise, it's just like theoretical physics. That's just in one ear, out the other, right? It's not something that's very practical. I don't have a frame of reference to really know what the hell they're talking about. But so I go to this convention in 2004 to play Armati, right? And and no one shows up to play Armati that year. It was apparently there was a tiff I did not know about, and everybody, the Armati group, left and didn't show up and didn't go to this con, even though they'd been having an event at this convention for many, many years for Armati tournament. So I'm like, well, damn. So I see them playing. They have this other game, DBA, and they had a tournament of that playing. So I got in that, and the rest is history. But I actually showed up to play Armati. But but I have the Armati rules, and I've played one game of it because before that convention, they actually had like a games day, like 2 hours away, and this one guy that I know was running an event that I got a chance to play for probably 6 hours. It wasn't a tournament game, but it was a kind of a demo game, and I got to play it, and it had some things that I liked about it, and it had some things I didn't like so much about it. It's not very forgiving from the standpoint of if you set up wrong, you're like screwed because the units can't wheel very much, as opposed to DBA where you can wheel a lot more as long as your movement allows for it. And I mean, even moving individual units, you can't turn very much. But it has some interesting mechanics from the standpoint of units can take multiple hits. You can lose some units and they're not that important. If you were going to do that like DBA, like the skirmishers wouldn't count towards your 4 units killed, that sort of thing. But there were some armies that tended to be power armies as opposed to other ones, and one of them, I believe, was the Mongols. So the Mongols apparently in Armati were really, really good. So interesting that they got handled, but they fired at a distance. You know, they fire at a distance and they could evade and do stuff like that. So um, that's basically my DBA story. So um, I'm with you. I need to play a game first. That's the best way for me to learn. Yeah, there might be some mechanic you hate. Um, the other thing that makes this game so good is no one other than the pip roll at the beginning of your turn. When you roll a dice, your opponent's also rolling a dice. So you could roll really good, but your opponent rolls really good too. They're kind of nixed, right? Or you roll poor and your opponent rolls really good and you're screwed. And so it's the interaction of both people. Both people are rolling the same amount of dice and they're involved in every combat. It's not like, okay, it's the time for the Mongols to do their thing. I'm going to go grab a cup of coffee and I'll see you back in like 4 or 5 minutes. So it keeps both people integrated in the battle the entire time. That's like a win. Okay, that's what that's what it is. So generally, what is the DBA crowd like? You guys seem pretty chill. Often these tournament games, the players can be pretty legalistic and not always the most fun to play with. It becomes more about the competition and not the history story being told. So, all right, a little bit of background information. This is the only game I have ever played of any kind, any period, anything that is tournament based. I've never played a tournament based game other than this one. The tournament appeals to me because I have a thing about wanting to use my own figures. Let's go back in time and talk about the first thing that I was interested in painting, and that was naval miniatures. This is like in the mid '80s. I would paint 1/2400 naval miniatures, bring them to a convention, and if they had a game going on, I would want to play the ships that I had, and I would say, hey, take your, because everybody played 1/2400 scale, okay? And there was naval games going on all the time during that period. And I was like, okay, well, I want to play the guys, and I want to replace my figure with yours. So I'm playing with my own miniatures a game. That's a huge appeal for me, okay? So when DBA comes along, that is something where, oh, I get to paint my own army. It's not huge, and I get to play with my own army. I mean, obviously, you can go to a tournament, and there's loaner armies available. But the appeal for me as a miniatures painter is I get to play with my own toys, because there's your incentive to get more. Because if you can play with anybody's, for me as a painter, I'm like, well, what's the incentive in building my own armies, right? So I get to play with my own toys in a tournament setting. Now I never played a tournament before, and I think because the I've heard horror stories about people playing in tournaments for different rule sets. Honestly, I think that some of the people that play this game are some of the nicest people to be around, and a lot of it has to do with the length of the game. The game's only going to last an hour, so if you're stuck in a situation where you're not going to win because of die rolls, how you deploy, you're playing some Kasparov level opponent that's very difficult to beat, whatever the reason is, the pain will be over in about 55 minutes, and you can go on to another game where you will not be playing the same person again, okay? The other thing is even though you're getting your butt kicked, you're still rolling the same amount of dice as the other guy is. You're still interacted as much. So it's not one of these situations where you're playing a game, like for instance, with multiple players, and you're the flanking force, and you don't come on until turn 4, and turn 4 ends up not happening until 4 hours down the line, and then you come in and botch a couple of die rolls, and all you did was sit around and watch other people play the game, and they're mad at you because you threw a couple of die rolls bad and you didn't get to play. You end up reaching over a huge table, so you're uncomfortable. Your turn never comes up, and you didn't do anything other than get mad and have other people get mad at you. That is not DBA. That is the opposite of DBA. And because of all those things, I think it creates an environment that is friendlier, even though it's competitive, it's friendlier than many other games. Now, are there people that are buttholes that play tournaments? Absolutely. Have I encountered in almost 2,000 games, I have encountered maybe this meant as many people on one hand that I can't stand and don't want to play a game with them ever again. I think that says a lot. Now, do I play a lot of people over? Sure. And a lot of it is on your own attitude. Are you an asshole? You know, everybody knows somebody who plays a game who's an asshole, right? And if you don't know someone, if you like, I don't know anyone, then guess what? You're that guy. So a lot of it is like what kind of attitude you bring to the table. If you've watched any of my games, I'm extremely competitive, okay? But I also want to play fair. And you could be the best player in the world, but if you want to, the worst thing is you've got, and there's a couple of people that I know that like this, that they're not in our gaming group now, thank God. But they'll want to apply the rules a certain way when they're playing and apply them a different way when their opponent is playing. And that is just like, how do you live with yourself? Okay? It's a game and there's a high honor. I consider myself a person of very high honor. That's why if you watch our games, we don't do dice rerolls. If the die's cocked on something, it's not a big deal because we know we're consistent and we always play it. But we're not going to play against somebody who, oh, well, I'll use the cocked dice if it's a good number for me, but if not, then I'm re-rolling it. That is just dishonorable, and that person should be had lashes taken to them. So, with that said, a lot of it is what kind of morality you bring to the game table. I really haven't had that many issues with that in all of the tournament play that I've had. So maybe it's a mixture of all those factors, but yeah, I wouldn't tolerate playing with somebody who's dishonorable. I just wouldn't do it. This hobby to me is a form of therapy for real life. If it's not providing that form of therapy, then I'm going to do something else because nobody's making any money off this. We're doing this just for our love and passion of history, and this should all be a positive experience. Every single bit of it. If something stops being a positive experience in your gaming and your hobby, you need to move on to a different hobby. Maybe find different players, you know? Maybe if you're the asshole, maybe you need to go find something else to do. But at least that's my experiences. 97% of the folks that I play with are fine folks. They have an excellent attitude, and even though we're trying to kill each other mercilessly, it goes both ways. You know, one of the sayings I like to use is, hey, the other guy's trying to win too. So I believe in having a very honorable, gentlemanly conflict simulation game, and that's what I want out of it. I accept no other substitutes. So I'm fortunate that the people that I game with seem to have the same attitude, or maybe we bring it out in each other. But no problems with the tournament scene in DBA in my experience. So, what are some good resources for uniforms and the like? I know of the Osprey Man at Arms series, but is there anything simpler that's good? Uncle Tony's DBA Truths. Hey, I just tell it like it is. I'll come back to your question on the uniform guides because I got a great one, and it's free and it's ever changing. I'll just tell you now what it is. Pinterest. Pinterest is awesome, and Google Image is awesome. And between those two things, just do a search. Do a Google Image search for Mongol miniatures or 20. I don't like 28mm miniatures. Sorry, folks, I don't. They just take too long to paint. And look, I take long enough to paint as it is, so I don't need any more excuses to not get stuff done. But there's some great resources of people that have painted them in 28mm, and there's lots of stuff on there. Pinterest, do Mongols. All kinds of pictures will come out. Unfortunately, the Osprey books, somebody has decided to take just about every single picture in the Osprey book and put it out on the internet. So if you do a search for Mongols, you will come across every single color plate that is probably you'll encounter from Osprey books that is on there. And just get ideas from that. What looks good, what color combinations you might like, what looks good to your eye. I think that between Pinterest and Google image searches, bam, you've got all kinds of stuff, you can come across. Uncle Tony's DVA Truths. Yeah, I tell it like it is. I just, that's why I don't want to be sponsored by anybody. Because if, you know, Litco stands, right? Another plug for Litco stands. If you watch any of my videos, you'll see that I'm always plugging Litco stands. I was fortunate that I never got another. Litco was already around when I got into DVA, and I love their stuff. And they've never contacted me, and they don't need to contact me. I don't want their free stuff. If they start making shitty product, I'm going to let you know it's started to get shitty. I mean, I don't want to. I always want to tell it like it is. That's just how I am in my personal life too. So, people at work don't like me so much sometimes, but it's that's just how it's. When you tell the truth, it's just really easy to keep your lies straight. You know, so I'd make a terrible salesman, I guess, but I'd make an even worse lawyer probably. But yeah. Yeah, I'm always plugging Litco stands. Their stuff's awesome. They do a great job. Um, but yeah, there's all kinds of stuff that's great with the internet. When I first started doing this, books were more useful than they are now. Now there's just so much information on the internet about historical stuff that um, is just really, really useful. Now, some people claim Wikipedia or whatever is not very accurate. Well, it depends what you're looking for. If you're looking for history that's 2,000 years ago, unless somebody's got an axe to grind, it's kind of reliable because stuff doesn't change all of a sudden. I think I mentioned the other night, it's not like all of a sudden somebody's going to find a big cache of Roman shields from the first century and now we know what all their patterns will look like, that kind of stuff. Just the information that we're going to find out from archaeology about all this stuff isn't going to change dramatically during our lifetimes, more than likely. I hope not. I don't want to repaint all these armies, but there's some awesome resources out there that that are available. So, but invariably, when you end up painting miniatures, you end up having to make your own spins on calls on stuff. You can use what the information that's available as a guide, but invariably you're going to have to come up with your own take on certain things. And looking at plates and reading about it kind of helps you make an informed decision on possibly how you would paint something, so that when you're done, you feel like um, you made the best choice based on the information you had available. At least that's my take on it. Um, so, but the internet is wonderful. There's just so much. There's just so much stuff out there. And get inspired by other painters, because at least you'll get it. Like maybe you'll do a search for, like, say 28 millimeter Mongols, right? And you come across some Mongols you really like how he painted. You can see, okay, he did the shirt in blue and the pants in this color, and all right, cool. I think I'll do that. Oh, and maybe get ideas for the different coloration on the horses and stuff like that. But and you can also see, like, oh, I don't think I'll paint those in that color because they don't look good to my eye. You know, um, you can put your own spin on different things, and just because something is historical doesn't necessarily mean that you can't vary from it a little bit. And I'll give you my World War II example I like to use. If I was building a Commonwealth force for World War II for, say, Market Garden or Normandy or something like that. So I'm going to build some British, say I'm going to build some British tanks that were like maybe 30th Corps. They're involved in 30th Corps. I want a war game Market Garden, all right? And a lot of the British vehicles, as an air recognition symbol, used a white star on their roof. If I'm building them, I am not putting a white star on the roof of my British vehicles because I personally think it looks stupid because they're not American. Now, I understand that they did it in real life, but it doesn't look right to me. So you can take things that don't fit your view of it and alternate them, and it still would be fine, I can't think of any other examples. That one's always poking me in the eye. I'm sure there's other examples as well, but just some things that you just don't like how they look, and it just doesn't look right to you. So you're always doing little things like that in your painting, and I think that that's the part that I think is fun, is when you're putting your own spin on things. So, because there's some things you just don't really know, just some things will just never be known in our lifetime. May never be known, because the kind of stuff that we want as miniatures painters, the information as historical miniatures painters, some of the stuff just nobody wrote it down. Nobody cared about. Polybius didn't write down what color shields the Romans had because he didn't think it was important. You know, so that stuff isn't. The stuff that those kind of things sometimes aren't available. We want to know order of battles and what legion was in which battle and that kind of stuff. And this stuff wasn't written down. Very few people wrote things down, and the ones that did, some of the stuff just didn't survive. So, you know, it was kind of eye opening when I started doing these ancients and medievals and realized that the information just isn't there. And I'm like, well, how the hell did you guys even make the figures? It was just kind of when I come from a World War II background, when I'm complaining about, oh, I really wish this picture was in color so I could see what the exactly colors they used instead of guessing. Now you're doing guesswork on everything. So, anyhow, it was really it was very eye opening experience for me to have that happen. I was not expecting that. So I'm sure I'll come across another example that drives me crazy and I refuse to do. Um, I can't think of one right now. I can't think of one right this second. I know there's other ones, but ultimately it's, like any work of art, it's your spin on it. So, and I always want to encourage people to paint because there just aren't enough of us. Too many people just don't have the time or patience, or there's people that say they don't have the patience to paint and they still have the patience to do stuff that I don't have the patience to do. Um, you know, um, Kevin, I'm painting late Imperial Roman because I like the look. There you go. You gonna paint somebody that fights him? You gonna paint like Dacians, or that's what I would do. That's who I'd want to build if I was building early Imperial Roman, and I have an army that I picked up a while ago, and I haven't painted them for early Imperial Roman, but I'd build Trajan's army for sure. Because he's got the Dacians and Parthians and stuff that he fought. Although I don't think that there would be a good matchup in DBA for Parthians. It's the late Imperial Romans. The problem they have is they have at least, without looking at the army list, they have to have at least 3 solid auxilia. At least they might even have to have 4. So then you got to find something useful for the auxilia to do. And sometimes that's hard depending on who your opponent is. Now, if you're fighting Warband, no problem. If you're fighting Cataphracts in the freaking desert, it's a little bit more difficult to find something useful for them to do. And it's hard when it's like a third of your army. And that's not me saying auxilia suck. Um, it's just, they're depending on who you're fighting, they're they can be non-productive. You end up playing keep away with them. Like, okay, we're gonna hide these guys so they don't end up costing me the game. So, because that's the other thing, is the DBA is the only game that you've taken such few losses and the game's over with. I mean, that's 4 kills out of 12. Now, I understand that there's a simulation in there, in that there's other casualties that are probably taken by the rest of the units as well, and it's not represented. You don't know what they're at as the army commander, because that's kind of how the rules are kind of geared for. They're geared for, you command the whole army. So all you know is if these units are in good shape, or are they moving forward, or did they get pushed back. That's kind of the decisions you don't know that they're at a third strength and that kind of stuff, and that's kind of the decisions that you're making based on those type of things. So once you wrap your head around that, it kind of makes a little bit more sense. And this is the look how we're getting lift up here from this this wet palette drying out. It's not a big deal, but it is enough that I am going to go ahead and put some water on it, because it's kind of annoying to look at, So we'll be right back in about a minute and put some water on here. But getting back to what I was talking about, kind of the honor system. And I haven't had too many experiences with people that are negative playing games. Maybe I just don't, maybe I'm picky on who I play games with. I know I am. I think that if our current group, no matter what we're playing, we're having a good time playing it. Because ultimately it is about the people. I mean, a game is it's just a way of socializing and stuff like that. And it is about the people. And, you could be the best player in the world, but if you're an asshole to everybody and nobody wants to play with you, what good would it do? So maybe it's better not to be so good. Anyhow, that's just my thought on it. I mean, it's just, it is about the people. So that's why we go to conventions, and in between sessions, we'll go out and grab a beer and just hang out. As a matter of fact, I mentioned it. I mentioned to several people the last convention I went to here in Florida. I've been perfectly happy not playing any games and just having beers with these folks. It's like, I game all the time at home. I don't need the convention for the gaming aspect. I just like to be able to socialize with folks that have a common interest, because this hobby that we're doing, I can't talk about it about anybody at work, or even people that I share a roof with. It's difficult for them to understand the passion of history and being able to participate in it and learn and put that to use, So, because I don't do sports or any of that stuff. I certainly don't watch or anything. So this is kind of what I do, is this kind of thing. So, but anyhow, the I live in a college town, so I don't want to hear about sports anymore. Like, okay, enough. And again, not to give you an idea of people that don't have a good attitude. I've seen sports fans all the time. That's why I don't get sports fans. I know most people are, but look around. You'll have people they'll be the same way they play games. Like, the rules apply to their team. The rules will apply to the other team, but not to your own team. Like, oh, that was an unfair call or whatever. It's okay. Take a step back and look at it. Is that really the case, or are you being emotional about it? Same thing. Don't make a ruling that appeals to your side, but isn't fair. So anyhow, I see that as a from fans as an outsider all the time, and I'm like, man, how do you people live with yourselves? Oh, they just get emotionally involved. So I don't know. Maybe I'm just really fortunate with the people that I'm playing with. So okay, so this is what we got. This is kind of difficult trying to decipher what exactly this clown is wearing, but it looks like he's got this ribbed, like a vest. Okay, and I saw this in the galloglass book, that it has In that one, it was red. I don't think I'm going to make it red. I think that's a little too gaudy for this guy. But it looks like you got it that's worn over the shirt. Um, so that's going to be padded. We're going to do kind of like a like this color for it. Okay, so it's not exactly the yellow saffron. Now you're if you haven't watched any of my other videos, you're wondering, Tony, why the hell are you painting all your guys in this saffron color? Well, apparently it was a thing. The Irish during this period. I mean, the Scots Irish, it wasn't the case, and the Norse Irish, it wasn't the case either. But when they got into this medieval Irish, they always went into this yellow color that was this saffron dye. So I'm kind of using this color as my base for all of the cloth on all the troops. So all these skirmishers and everything, they all have that same stinking yellow color as their base thing. And I've altered it a little bit, by either mixing black or brown in it to lighten it up. But again, these guys also have the whole saffron thing going on. That was just a thing. I didn't decide to make them that way. That was just that's how they're going to be. Now, the Scottish Knights obviously won't be that way. The Scottish Pikemen obviously won't be that way. Again, they're not going to be super gaudy, but they're not going to be tied down to having to be this saffron color. Their allies, the Scots Islesmen, they also will not have this saffron color. So there'll be a little bit of colors we can add in there, but that's just kind of the rationale between it. So I didn't realize that my phone was unplugged from the power. Luckily, we didn't lose connection here, but it wasn't 100%. Where are we at now? 48? Yeah, we're good. Could probably film for another over 30 minutes at 48%. So, okay, so let's see if we got any more questions. I'm painting Imperial Roman. They can have 5. Don't ever play Warhammer 40K. People awful. Well, there's lots of things going on, okay? First of all, I don't like the codex mentality. I don't like rules that all the rules and all the army lists don't come in one book. I don't like to play a game where nobody has their figures painted. That seems to be the thing. And there's too much of the Games Workshop. I haven't played any of their Games Workshop games, but as an outsider, I can tell you I don't like the methodology of, oh, we don't want this game anymore. We're not going to support it. That's it. Game's over. Perfect example was around 1991, 92. I saw that you'd pick up a white dwarf or something like that, and everything in there is painted just beautifully. It's like, you want to play it. They had this little naval game called Man of War. Okay, so it was like fantasy naval game, and it was really cool looking. There was dwarves with battleships and all kinds of stuff. Well, they didn't want to support that game anymore, so it died. Well, I'm sorry, it's bullshit. Okay, from a consumer, it's like, okay, people want to buy product. I want to buy products. I don't believe in pirating things. Here's my morality lesson. But we're going on all kinds of chat. We're going on all kinds of different topics here. I don't believe in pirating things, but if something is information and for some reason someone decides not to reprint it because they don't want to, then I wouldn't have a problem trying to find it by other means. Now, I don't mind giving it, because otherwise you create the Dark Ages. That's how the Dark Ages got created. Like, people knew stuff, and then it got forgotten, and then, we don't know anything other than these monks and a thing. It's like, come on, folks, man, keep this stuff going. I mean, I just don't understand the whole, we're not going to support this game anymore. It's going to die. Same thing happened with Dark Future. Dark Future was like a Car Wars game that was really, really cool. I wanted to get into it. Stop making it. Not going to do that anymore. And it was in 20 millimeter, and that's my scale. That's the scale that I'm not a 15 millimeter guy. I'm a 20 millimeter guy. The lead miniatures, 20 millimeters. So I don't understand that whole business model. So yeah, Warhammer 40K, wouldn't get into it, and it just seems like a money pit where they're like, oh, okay, well, we need to make more money. Well, let's change the rules on these, so we got to buy more stuff. I mean, I understand that you have to try to make money that way, but When I grew up, you either made miniatures or you made rules. You didn't do both. And I guess that's a thing now. But anyhow, and that wasn't my little speech to say it's okay to pirate things. I'm just saying that they shouldn't make things. Okay, I'm gonna use a specific example. Say there's a book that describes how maybe some figures were painted of a certain period, and there's only one of them, and it goes out of print. And somebody decides, I wouldn't do this, but if somebody decides to put it out on the internet, I'm all for people using it because they're not going to reprint it. And it's like, why don't you guys reprint the book? Well, whatever. I just don't believe in withholding information. I just think that the information should be out there. You know. Um, Anyhow, I don't know what the hell I'm going on with that, but anyhow, it annoys me that people just discontinue things. So, Joe, catch you later, maybe on Monday. Okay, catch you later, maybe on Monday. I hope you can join us, Joe, on Monday, because we're going to play on Monday. Uh, Seeing a lot of version 2 army packs. Are those applicable? No, do not buy them. Please do not buy them. They will not have all the options. I was hoping they had bases with them, but appears not to be an option. No, they don't sell figures and bases together. Man, those Beta sets look great. Yeah, they do. And the guy that painted the figures for him did a really good job. That's the thing. That's the thing, folks. If you guys have a miniatures company and you're gonna show figures of painted, don't get a crappy painter. Okay? Get somebody like who Boeda got, who Kurasan gets good guys to paint his stuff. Get someone to paint your figures that are gonna make the figures shine. Or, better yet, take your figure, like this little doggo here, all right? And do a dark wash on him so he shows the detail and just post that. That's great. But please show pictures of your figures because nobody's going to buy figures sight unseen. It's just, come on. It's the 21st freaking century, folks. You know, that's my take on it. So, Two Fat Lardies is doing well, just making awesome rules. Their ongoing revenue comes from their annual magazine and campaign scenario books. DBA is ordered, you pusher. Well, if I'm a pusher, you're a sucker. So, it's great. The rules are great despite the wording. They really, 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 really are. I mean, I've played nothing else for the last 16 years, miniatures wise. And I don't see myself playing anything other than this. It's just super effective. Now, it's a tall hill to climb, but one of the best things you could do is get a new player, play some games, practice some games, and then get a new player that you need to teach the rules to. That forces you to have to come up with where things are and your reasoning behind it. And that increases your own understanding of the rules immeasurably. The other thing that is really, really good is don't know what the hell I was going to say. Maybe it'll come back. But yeah, teaching the rules to someone else is like the best thing you could do. Absolutely. Because you have to come up with reasonings why. You might have an inquisitive person learning. Well, why is that? Well, that's a good question. Let's look it up. Yeah, that's super handy. Oh, I know the other thing I was going to say. So the other thing is that my attitude has always been, if you're going to teach somebody new, and I've done this several times with new players, especially if you're an experienced player, I would think that you'd want to get better. Like every time you play, you play better, or you make a more informed decision about what you move and how, okay? So that it becomes second nature. I think I've gotten better with every time I've played. I hope so. There's still dice rolling, so that's the great equalizer. But if you get a new player, show them all your tricks. That's what I've always done. So you can get him up to speed so he can be the best player he can be, so that he can be a good competition for you. Do it for your own egotistical reason, okay? So that you become better. Well, how are you going to be better? Make him better. In a perfect world, I would like to win 50.0000001% of the time. Okay, I want to have a winning record, but I also want to be challenged as best possible by every opponent. I don't want to have some guy that I play and like, I can't play. I can't wait to play Frank again. Why? Well, because I always kick his ass. Well, what fun is that? What fun is it for Frank? What fun is it for you? Maybe that's just my attitude. This is a friendly game of competition. So yes, I'd like to win. You'd like to win, and but I want a good challenge every time. Now I understand I may actually be the exception to many players. They want to play a game and they want to win all the time. But if there's no challenge, what is that really worth? You know, that's like, I want to get in a fight, but I want to beat up a toddler. Well, of course you were going to win. This is a hell of a channel, folks. I'm promoting piracy of printed material and beating up small children. Tony's un-PC examples. No, but seriously, that's the best thing you could do is teach somebody all of your tricks. I think I've tried to do that with all the people that I played, and so they can become a better player, so they can get hooked. Because I don't want them to go off and play another game. So, anyhow, what else do we have here? What else do we have here? Point taken. Number one sucker is here's. No, if you never play the rules, okay? If you never play the rules, the army lists alone are really awesome reading, because now you have descriptions of all the armies and stuff. So just think of that. The rules are gonna suck. I just got it for the army list, okay? And you'll be fine. It's probably the best $18 you've ever spent, without a doubt. I mean, it's they're excellent. So, uh-oh. Ashram, hi Tony from Italy. Oh, awesome. Would it be benvenuto? Would that be welcome? I'm just guessing. I speak Spanish, and I can kind of fake Italian thing, so maybe that's correct. So, do you like Litco bases? What thickness? Do I like Litco bases? Have you not watched any of my videos? I've got the Litco t-shirt. No, I should have the Litco t-shirt. Yes, I love Litco bases. I like 3mm. Okay? Damn it, Todd, you're one hell of a sidetracker. No, I'm enjoying the hell out of this. I appreciate you. Remember how I was falling asleep about an hour ago? It's your fault I didn't fall asleep. Thank you. So, these are some cavalry stands. These are 40 by 30, and they're 3mm thick. They also make them 1.5. And this is what I use, and I also order them. Now, I'll be honest with you, they're kind of pricey, okay? You have to buy them separately. Like, they don't have them in two separate things. So, what I use is the magnetic bottoms. I got a big pile of where I just throw them all in here. So they are sorted by size. Here we go. Looks like I'm gonna have to order some soon. And it's just a stick-on backing, okay? And this is a magnet. I mean, you can put this on there, and then you can stick them on your refrigerator and all kinds of fun stuff. But this is what I use. When I first started, there was only the 3mm thickness. This is like in 2004. So now they have a 1.5 inch thickness. And they have magnetic bottoms of two different kinds. They have the standard and they have what they call heavy duty. I have the heavy duty ones now, and they stick probably twice as strong as the earlier ones. So I do recommend the magnetic bottoms. And the reason why is because if I'm doing basing, I can use a cool little tool like this little window cleaner thing, okay? And I can just stick it on here, and I can do things like not touch the stand and get paint all over me, because you know how much I like getting paint on myself. Um, but it becomes handy to do that, and I transport them. I transport them in like a cookie sheet type container, all these guys. So I like the magnetic bottoms. I like the heavy duty magnetic bottoms, which are a tiny little bit thicker than the, again, they're not very thickness. Now, why I like the 3 millimeter? Well, the thicker your stand is, the more likely that when you go and pick it up, you're not touching your figures. Okay, which means your figures aren't getting the paint scuffed off of them. And I like how it looks. I like that it looks like a playing piece. It doesn't need to look like a diorama. I mean, there's a diorama in here, but that's just a personal preference. Um, some people like the thinner stands. I just I like this 3 millimeter thick. I got another friend of mine who likes metal stands. I don't like metal stands because then I have to put magnetic sheet down. I'd rather everything be magnetic, and just the magnetic is on this thing that I'm trying to magnetize. And also, metal stands have sharp corners, which means they don't necessarily draw blood or anything or scrape up against things, but that's where the paint's going to scuff off. So, that avoids having to repaint or having some shiny part of metal here on your stand that's going to be an eyesore. So anyways, that's my take on them. You have to order them separately, so you have to say, okay, I want this many stands of this type, and then you get the equivalent type of whatever if you want magnetic bottoms on them. So they're two separate things, and unfortunately they're kind of pricey, but I don't care. But I do need to order some more. But that is my Litco plug. I love Litco stands. Now, why do I like Litco stands? Well, somebody happened to sell them when I was starting to get into DBA, and they had them there. If they wouldn't have had them there, then I wouldn't have gotten into Litco stands. I mean, it's just coincidence. What's that saying? Timing is everything, right? So yeah, Ashram. I use war bases, 2 millimeter thick for 15 millimeter. Okay, 3 millimeter thick for 28 millimeter. That makes sense. That makes sense to use 3 millimeter for 28. Yeah, I don't do any 28s, so if I did do 28s, if I woke up one morning and decided something was wrong with me, other than the normal stuff that's wrong with me every morning, and I was going to do 28s, without a doubt, what I would do is I would, let's say I was going to do 28s in for DBA. I would base them individually on some kind of round stand that would fit inside another Sabo that I would use as this stand. So now I can play a skirmish type game, and then I can also play a game like DBA that has them all on a stand. Without a doubt, I would do that. I would even, I thought about it. I mentioned this in one of the other videos. A friend of mine wanted to do Saga, and I'm like, I don't want to do 28s. I would do Saga in 15s, and then I would do something like this. I'd base them all on these little round stands, because I like the way round stands look a lot. These cavalry here are based on round stands, but these are just temporary. These, I popped them off when I put them on the stand. These are my early Russians that I'll get to at some point. Well, if we're lucky, then we might jump into them after all the Irish are done. But anyways, the Russian collusion has stopped for now with that. Got all the army done except maybe 7 or 8 cavalry figures. I just kind of petered out interest. Okay, so what else? Never thought about branching out to Art de la Guerre, DBMM, or Mortem et Gloriam. I'm going to come back to that. Yellow horse, very prominent plant in Ireland, growing 90% of the year. Yellow. Okay, I don't know what that means. Look, if a company aren't printing rules anymore, well, I'll just leave it at that. Exactly. I want people to make money, but I believe in the free market. Oh man. Yes, I got it right. Benvenuto. Exactly. Yeah. So anyhow, so I'm gonna go off, branch off on something else. Let me get some painting done. I'm enjoying this immensely, so hopefully you guys are as well. Italian, right? So I speak Spanish fluently. I didn't go to school, but I speak Spanish only with my folks. Okay, my my parents are Cuban. Came over in 1960 when the shit went down, and I understand my great grandfathers come from the old country in Spain, so that's my lineage. So, anyhow, and I have no one left on Cuba, thank goodness. We have a very small family, so nobody's over there suffering with all the crap that's going on. But anyhow, so I figured, okay, Italian, right? Similar. I can understand people talk, and kind of. And if I see stuff written down in Italian, I can make out a good chunk of it. So I decided to watch a series that Mitch turned me on to, which I don't know if you're familiar with it or not. Now, let me think what it's called. It's a mobster series set in the present day, and I don't remember what it's called. It's on Netflix, and it's very good. But I watch subtitles on everything, right? So I watch. I don't mind watching foreign movies, but I'm hard of hearing a little bit. I have trouble making things out. So anything I watch on television or anything like that, I put subtitles on. Luckily, I've talked my entire family into doing it, so it's normal for us to have the subtitles there. And anything I watch tends to be complicated, so you're talking about like spies, double crossing type things. So you want to see things written down because sometimes, like, oh, you need to see who's on what side and who's playing for what team. It gets complicated. So subtitles are a thing for me. So, and then the name of this series escapes me of whatever it is. It came out maybe 3 or 4 years ago. It's set in Naples, mostly. And the the pronunciation on the spelling is significantly different. There's a lot of words that in Italian, at least from my viewpoint, the letters are there, but they're not pronounced. So if I see a lot of the Italian stuff written down, I can make out what a good chunk of it is. But if it's spoken, I know. I get lost on a lot of it because some of the letters aren't pronounced, or maybe the pronunciation is not how I would have thought it would be. But I'm glad I got that one right. So, excellent. So, best $18. Well, that was one time when I was in Tijuana. Oh man, I prefer thicker bases. Okay, so I can look at a pack if it's all infantry and then pretty much divide the figure count by 4 to know how many bases to get. No, sorry, it doesn't work that way. It does not work that way, unfortunately. It does not work that way because there's different size stands also in it. But you'll have to look at if you have something in particular. If you look at a particular army and you say, "Hey, I just bought so and so's," just private message me, Todd, and I can tell you how many of each stand you need to get. And you don't want to pay for shipping on the stand, so maybe look at like maybe if you need 20 of one stand and 10 of something else, then maybe you order 15 of one and 25 of the other, that kind of thing. Maybe round up a little bit so you have a couple extra for like your next project. But no, it's not that simple, unfortunately. So let me take care of one little maintenance thing here. Okay, let's close that down. Heavy infantry should be on 40 by 15. So heavy infantry apparently in 3.0 got changed where you can actually use 40 by 20. I do not. I like them on 40 by 15. These guys will be on 40 by 15 because they look more dense, okay? And I just like how that looks, but you can use either one. There's some people that would argue with me, I don't want to do it on 20. Do whatever, which one you like. We like 40 by 15s for our heavy infantry, our solid pikes, that kind of stuff. So for the most part, you're going to be 40 by 40s, 40 by 30s, 40 by 20s, 40 by 15s. 40 by 15s is all of the solid foot, your blades, your solid spears, your solid pikemen are 40 by 15s. 40 by 20s is a really popular size because any warband units are on that. Any auxilia, even if they're solid or fast auxilia, they're still on 40 by 20. Any skirmishers, your Saloy, any of them are on 40 by 20s as well. 40 by 30s is like your horde stands, your any cavalry. So if it's light knights or light horse, any of that stuff is on 40 by 30s. And your 40 by 40s is your artillery and artillery, war wagons, heffalumps. What else? That's the main thing. So your most common size are going to be the 40 by 15s, 40 by 30s, and 40 by 40 by 15s, 40 by 20s, and 40 by 30s. The 40 by 40s, if you don't have artillery or elephants, you're not going to use that size stand. So, all right, let's see. DBA 3.0 is okay for infantry on 40 by 30. Yes. Other games, not so much, like Art de la Guerre. Okay, so Art de la Guerre still uses 40 by 30. Okay. Heavy can be on 40 by 30. People kind of go. Yes. Gamora. Yes, Gamora is the series. Yes. Seen. That's not Italian. Interesting. Uh-oh. We're going to have an Italian civil war here. They speak strict Naples dialect. Okay. Italians leave subs on too. They do not feel bad. I love it. Oh, I love it. I love it. I love it. Okay. I didn't know that there was that huge of a difference. Okay, cool. I don't feel so bad then. No, if it was spelled out, I would make it out. But I noticed that a lot of the things that will be, it's just not even, it's not even close, the pronunciation, I would think. So maybe that's what it is. Yeah, cool. Can't fit my minifig chariots on 40 by 40. Yeah, they're difficult. If you're going to overhang, make sure you overhang the back, not the front, because you want to make sure that you can at least mesh and tie in with the other guy. So, yeah, that's funny, strict dialect. Okay, so let's go back to your question there. Ashram. Okay. Okay. I want to get you exactly your question here. It was about other rules. Do you ever think about branching out Art de la Guerre, DVMM, or Mortem et Gloriam? Okay. So, all three of those rules have something that I am against, and that's painting more figures. I don't want to paint more figures. Okay? All three of those rule sets have more detail in combat. I'm all for that. I'm not sure about DB, about Mortem et Gloriam on this point that I'm saying, but all the other ones require the thing I hate the most about DBA. Yes, there's something I hate about DBA. I mentioned it earlier. It's that you have to have combat like this. You can't have combat like this. You can't have combat like this. It's got to be like this, and then they turn to face, and then it has to be straight on like this. You can't go to combat like this at an angle. You can't. You can't have combat like this. You can't. There's just too many you can'ts that the game becomes very geometrically weird and abstract and doesn't feel. It's very difficult to explain to newcomers. I know. I've tried to explain it to newcomers. So if I'm going to play another set of rules, it's not going to have that in it, okay? That's the first thing. And I've thought about actually, I'm working at some point, I will make a Renaissance version of DBA 3.0, like I did with the DBA RRR. And one of the things it will have is it will not have conforming like that because it's very, 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 very abstract and weird. Now, I know why it's done. I don't want it. Okay, I don't want that. That's one of the things that keeps the game from appealing to a lot of people. It feels like a cheesy chess-like game. And I get it. I understand that because I've tried to explain it to people. If I'm going to make a set of rules The number one criteria is anything that I use in DBA that I have to say, well, it's just that way because the author decided it to be that way. That's a no-no. That's going out the window. Okay? Because what I'm basically saying is it doesn't make sense to me either, but that's just the way they decided to do it. So all those things are difficult to explain to a new player, and they're a hindrance to them understanding the rules. So if I'm designing a rule set, all that stuff's out the window. Now, DBMM is more of DBA with more options and stuff. That's cool, but I think it takes too long to play. And I'm sorry, I don't think it can handle more barkeries than DBA. Okay, I'm not going to give up on this game because I've spent so many calories of brain power trying to process it that I'm like committed to doing it. Okay, so DBMM, I wouldn't mind playing it because I like all those little uh, things with that have to do with the weather and what time of day it happens. I just don't want to learn to play the game. Somebody else is going to have to play the game for me, and I'll just play along. But do I like all those details? Absolutely, love them. But I don't want to play the game wrong either. So DBMM's out for that reason. Now I've come close to getting the army books just for the descriptions and get exactly the right unit that is represented in DBA, for research purposes. But to actually play DBMM, no. No, I'm just, and then I'll go back to playing this and I'll get confused. Art de la Guerre. All right, how can I put this lightly? And I don't want to offend anybody. So if I do offend you, I'm sorry, but I'm just being honest with you. I looked at a set of the Art de la Guerre rules, and they seem like a total ripoff of Phil Barker's work. Okay? That's just me personally. It just seems like, even the armies are the same, like the compositions, and now it plays differently, and it has a lot of things that I like skirmishers can shoot at a distance and penetrate through. I think that it's better than DBMM. I'll watch a couple of videos of it, but I've looked at the rules and I'm like, why hasn't this guy been sued? It's just too similar. Now, there are some differences, don't get me wrong, but it looks like they took DB, what was it? DBM, and said, we're going to make our own rule set because we don't like DBMM, but we're going to keep a lot of the same stuff. I don't know how they got away with it. Now, if they had done that and didn't market it and charge for it, no problem. Okay. But once you start charging for a product, I think it puts it on a different level. I'm not talking legally because they both may be wrong legally. I'm not a lawyer. I'm just saying from my own personal morality. Now, that doesn't mean I wouldn't play Art de la Guerre if somebody was playing Art de la Guerre for morality reasons. I'm just saying that from an outsider, it looks, I wouldn't have done that. Okay, I wouldn't have done that. Now, Mortem et Gloriam, I've watched a couple of the videos on him that are done by the author, and he does a really cool way of explaining it. And they have a Pacto version of Mortem et Gloriam. I would be tempted to try that, but again, I don't want to. This game is the simplest game, quote unquote, simplest game I've ever played, but it's so complicated that it's so difficult to explain to other people that I don't want to take point to explain a new set of rules to anyone else. Like, I've taken point on this game for so many years with our group as far as trying to get things across and find out the, running tournaments and stuff like that. I just don't want to do that with another set of rules. I'm just not, I just, until I retire, I just don't have the strength to want to tackle that on. But that Pacto looks cool because it's smaller and looks like it's got a lot of card play and that kind of stuff. So I don't know if that answers the question, but no, I'm probably not going to try any of them. If somebody puts on a Pacto game, I might try it, but it is more figures to paint. It's not a horribly more amount of figures to play. And then I've thought about playing what's the one that's on a grid? To the strongest. To the strongest looks like it's cool because it has kind of a unique kind of thing on there, but I don't really want to play on a grid. That's also kind of phony-ish feeling. My gripe with DBA is that when you're moving cavalry around and stuff like that, because of you have to line up exactly, it starts to feel less like what you're doing. It feels more like you're playing it's a good game, don't get me wrong, but it's like some kind of chess-ish type of game with dice that I don't know. I don't feel like when I bring these guys to battle, I don't feel like I've just played a Dark Ages battle. I just feel like I've played a really cool competitive game and it's been fun, and that's it. I don't know if that makes any sense. Um, so, um, but anyhow, that hopefully answers your question. Well, let's go all the way back down here. With all these armies you've created over the years, have you played any big battle game or 24 elements aside game? Yes, and welcome James Shevlin. Uh, Ashram. Okay, so Art de la Guerre is out. There's a conform in combat similar to DBA. Impetus is something similar without conform. We played a lot here in Italy, but completely different basing. Yes, but believe it or not, I have the Impetus rules. I bought them. Okay, I've thought about playing Impetus with a unit of skirmishers. Okay, and Impetus is this. Hey, look, I have enough skirmishers to show you. This is a unit, right? It's 2 wide by 2 deep. Okay? In DBA, it's this. In Impetus, it's this. So I'm like, okay, well, why the hell can't I play Impetus, having all the range, and using DBA size elements? So here's my skirmisher, but now they move half as far, they shoot half as far. So I thought last winter time I was going to try that. I just hadn't gotten a chance to. I've heard some bad things about Impetus in that the units aren't the matchups aren't balanced really well. I can't say that's the case. That would not discourage me. Okay, but that's what I've heard about it. I take other people's opinion with a grain of salt, but the thing that I would dislike the most about Impetus is that I don't believe it has a pip mechanism. But that's okay. I'd still willing to try it. But I think somebody also said that they didn't like that the units didn't line up. But I'm willing to give other things a try. So that is on my list. I did print out the rules. I bought them, printed out the rules, and I mean, they're beautiful rules. They're in full color and everything, The funny thing is I end up, like the heavy infantry, it's what called FP, right? Fanteria pesada or something like that. So I do, I'm thinking in an Italianish type thoughts for what the units are called because of their what their what their abbreviations are. So I thought that was kind of interesting. So, yeah, what I like about a lot Art de la Guerre is the absence of recalls and the introduction of cohesion points. I would like cohesion points as well. Yeah, I would like cohesion points. Impetus, you can move whatever you want in a range of generals for no pip. Yeah, it would. It's just as long as there's some kind of fanteria pesante. Okay. Yeah, fanteria pesante. Yeah. And in Spanish, it would be infanteria pesada. So it's the same but different. Yeah. So actually, I was thinking the Spanish group that plays DBA, they didn't go over to DBA 3.0. So one of the designers of the what's it called, virtual tabletop or whatever, they have the mod for 3.0 on it. I can never remember what it's called. The computer thing where you can play over the tabletop. I played a game with him, and he's from Spain, and I'm like, you know what we need to do? I need to do a 3.0 teaching game with you because he knows how to use that virtual tabletop thing. I don't. I know 3.0, and we should play in Spanish. Of course, the problem is I don't know like what skirmishers is called in Spanish because I I speak Spanish, but it's only stuff that you would talk to your mom and dad about, like how was your day, that kind of stuff, not, technical, uh, history driven kind of stuff. I mean, I would be able to, once I know what the word is. So I said we could struggle with it, and I could probably play 75% of it in Spanish, But I said that's a thought. Maybe you can get the Spanish community to embrace 3.0. But I think it was one of those issues where they didn't want to rebuild their armies. But that's really easy because we've kind of embraced the fact that we let people use a 2.2 army if they have it. Just because you don't have a 3.0 army doesn't mean you're not going to let you play. Now they're going to behave like they do in 3.0, but their composition can be like the 2.2 army. And we kind of just, when it changed, we had one player in particular that did not want to rebuild his armies. And we're like, okay, well, you can use the 2.2 armies because it's not worth, and he has a lot of armies, and it's not worth, um, just having somebody say, screw it, I'm not playing with you guys anymore, because that doesn't benefit anybody. Now, his reasoning behind not wanting to convert to 3.0 is because he's not a painter. So he's bought these 2.2 armies from some people that over the internet, or a painter that painted a lot of his stuff and is now deceased. So he can't get the extra elements done by that same person anymore. So if he gets new armies, they're 3.0 armies, but he's keeping his 2.2s. I figured, okay, well, that's one guy, it's not that big of a deal. But that was the big discouragement with many people, is that they didn't want to have to rebase and redo their armies and stuff. And I get that, but we are friendly to the point where, if that's what's keeping you from playing the game, then by all means, use the old army list and and play along with us. So it is just a friendly game at the end of it. We do tournaments and stuff, so you could win a little memento or whatever, but it's not like you're winning cash or anything. So just be accepting and let other people play if that's what their hang up is. So yeah. So anyhow, yeah, that's one of our players that has a crap ton of armies, and they weren't going to convert them over. They have over like 100 armies. So okay, what else we got? And what do you think about the strict 12 elements in DVA without much choices in other systems with void systems? So, like I said, this is the only tournament game I've ever played. I actually don't mind that it's 12 elements. The way I look at it is it's 1/12 of your army. So 1/12 of your army may be a skirmisher. It may be four 12ths of your army may be skirmishers. If you have four, whatever. I don't mind the abstraction. It's okay. I don't mind it. The point systems, I mean, I wouldn't mind if you could have some kind of variation between, say, 10 units and 15. So the fact that Impetus does that is kind of cool. Not all the armies are all the same size. So, yeah, I welcome that. I don't... I'm not a guy that's going to build one army because it's awesome and that's the only army I'm going to use. I mean, I know there's people like that, but that's not me. So that kind of stuff doesn't really scare me. I don't think that's really our people in our group either. If people start doing stuff like that, you just start doing like, okay, we're going to play a tournament and you have to switch armies. So if you pick one army that one guy always shows up all the time and we know it's some kind of super army, then every tournament we do, you got to play the person twice, once with his army and once with yours. Well, that solved that problem. So, after I've won a tournament with an army, I really don't want to play him again in a tournament setting. I want to challenge myself a little bit, so, but that's just me. I understand that there's people like that. I heard a story. There's one guy he's from a place a long ways away. I don't even know who his name is, but he used to play in DBA 2.2 games. He would always play one army, and he would set up in a corner, basically like refusing to flank, and he would just sit there. And they were like, they didn't know how to deal with it. I'm like, I've never experienced something like that. I've never experienced somebody who didn't want to come to grips. That's just poor sportsmanship. And you know what? That's just a guy that's probably no fun to play with. Nobody does that and then, they're like, oh, he's a great guy, except he sets up in this corner. No, he's probably a dick. That's that's unsportsmanlike. That's now I understand if you're playing some event and you have like all soy, and some guys has all knights. You can't set up the battle and be totally forest and not give the knights a chance. You have to you got to give a little to get same thing if you're playing an army of skirmishers against an army of skirmishers and you have a bunch of like knights and you won terrain, don't set up an entirely clear battlefield. Give the guy a chance. Like put some woods that you got to give a little to it's a friendly game when you get right down to it. So, but yeah, that was one guy in particular. That's people that do stuff like that probably are no fun in real life. You probably cheat on their taxes too and other things. Oh, they pirate games. Oh, we got to use a bigger brush than this. We're never going to get this done. Well, I've definitely slowed down the amount of painting I've gotten done, but I'm still painting, and that's the important thing, and still having a good time. So I appreciate you guys' input. It has been extremely entertaining for me. I greatly appreciate it. That's a hell of a lot more valuable to me than sign up to be on my subscription thing and being a member and screw that. I don't want your money. I just want to stay motivated to paint these little dudes. This is where it's at for me. But yeah, I have wanted to try um, impetus. But there are some things in Art of the Laguerre that I think are better because I think that DBA could be a better game if the conforming contacting stuff was easier to do and less abstract. And then once you got that down, because that's really what people have difficulty with. They don't have difficulty with oh, the blades are this number and spears are this number. People don't have complicated stuff. People don't confuse that. After playing one game, you'll get all that stuff down. Okay? It's all the other exceptions and weird contacting rules. If you could clean up the contacting, then you could have more complicated combat. And it's not that it has to be a lot more complicated, but you could have more flavor to it. And don't get me wrong, it's pretty good now. It was severely lacking in 2.2, in my opinion. And I played over 500 games of 2.2, maybe even more, maybe even like 700 games of that. Because we played 2.2 from the time I started until 2012. The number of games that I played didn't really start skyrocketing until I got a local player around 2010, and then we were playing every week. And then the number of I went from playing 40 games a year to playing 40 games a month. It just dramatically went up significantly. So I cannot stress how important that is to have a person that you can play with on a regular basis to learn the rules. It is so important. Meeting and playing only at conventions just doesn't cut it. Doesn't cut it. So, as a matter of fact, I don't actually miss conventions that much this year. Well, how can you do that? Well, I still get to play once a week. We didn't for a little bit there, for like 5 weeks or so, but we're still playing at least once a week. And now we're doing this kind of stuff. So, this is I don't miss it that much, and that doesn't mean that when the conventions start back up that I'm not going to be going to them. We're still going to them, but I'm just saying it's not horrible for us. I mean, I know some people that aren't doing any gaming at all because nobody lives anywhere near them. So, that sucks tremendously, and but that's not the case at least for me. So, and I'm painting more than I ever have when I have no tournaments to paint for. So that's really interesting. But I think this kind of interaction, being able to share my passion with other people, is really, really stepped it up for me. You know, I don't. That's a part of the enjoyment is there's a lot of people that, um, especially the painting stuff, because lots of people will game and they don't paint. Um, I only know one person that I game with regularly that paints, and they didn't start gaming with us until maybe 3 months ago, 4 months ago. Before that, they just there was nobody. It was me. So you know, it's hard to get excited about painting stuff with when nobody paints. So, but yeah, I do have impetus. I do plan on trying it at some point, but make sure we don't have any new stuff here. James Shevlin. Any thoughts on the Triumph rules by Washington Grand Company? Do you have the same reservations as with Art de la Guerre with their similarity to DBA? I know those guys really well, okay? Um, and we used to go to Historicon and they used to run all the DBA stuff up there. We played the first version that of the rules that came out. And what we were planning on doing, those of us that traveled from Florida, was to play their rules at Historicon and play DBA here. Because in Florida, people didn't want to play Triumph. Okay. Now, they were part of the same team that made the DBA Plus thing, which I think was a huge improvement on DBA 2.2, the DBA 2.2 Plus. I was part of that playtest group, and there was nothing in DBA 2. There was nothing in 2.2 Plus that wasn't better than 2.2. Nothing. It was better in every single way. Triumph came out, and it came out at the same time that they were working on it. The 3.0, we were doing the 3.0 test. But the problem we were having is, even if we loved Triumph, we weren't going to get any players in Florida because people in Florida didn't want to play it. Okay, they just, for whatever reason, they didn't want to play it. Okay, so like, all right, well, now we got a decision to make. You know, and it's really the people over the rules. So we're like, okay, well, we're going to play Triumph, and when we go to Historicon, and we're going to play DBA 3.0 here. We did that the first year. We came back, and we had to like relearn freaking everything. Now, Triumph was very similar to DBA 2.2 Plus. So it was really easy to pick up, and it's still the same as even DBA 3.0 as far as the decisions that you make and your understanding of what's going to happen and the pacing of it is still kind of the same. So we played that the first year, came back to Florida. It took us like freaking 2 months to get back in the DBA 3.0 scheme of things. Okay. We're like, all right, well, we'll just do it. So the next year we went to Triumph, and they changed Triumph significantly at the last moment before Historicon. Okay. So now we had a game that we hadn't played in 10 months to retrain for at the last minute, and then come back to Florida and unlearn that one and relearn 3.0. I'm like, we can't keep doing this anymore. So we're like, okay, if we're going to go to Historicon, we're going to run DBA 3.0 stuff there. Or we're just not going to, because it just wasn't worth playing the rules wrong for like a month after you came back. Because it's just significantly different now. You have units that can pass through other units at weird angles. And I don't necessarily disagree with any of it, but it's like you can't play both. And it's like, you know, which way you're going to have it. Well, we're going to play this. So I don't agree that they should have charged for it, but that's my personal thing. You know, I've made my modifications for DBA and the Renaissance, and I had no intention of charging for them, and I never will. But that's just my own personal thing. You know, whether I give $15 or whatever the rules cost to them doesn't really hurt my thing. I'm just saying from a personal standpoint, I wouldn't have done it. But that's not the reason why I'm not playing it. I'm not playing it because it's just too confusing. It's too confusing to play it, and I just feel like, especially now with doing all the videos, we are the freaking tip of the sword for DBA 3.0. So we don't want to get these things wrong because it confuses the hell out of everybody else, you know, and we don't want that. We don't want people to be discouraged, and we don't want to get things wrong, even though sometimes we do. So playing that other set of rules up there is going to cause that sort of thing. So I don't know if that answers your question, but that's my honest take on it. I know those guys really well, though, and it's a shame that we all can't play the same set of rules, but, you know, it is what it is, you know. Okay. Kevin Brownell, unhappy face. Okay. The problem with a lot of these other rule sets is the WRG guys, Phil Barker, etc. It seems to me they were the pioneers on coming up with army lists for a lot of this stuff. Okay? Some of them there's information on. Some of them, I'm going to tell you, they pulled it out of thin freaking air. Okay? Because the stuff, the information isn't available. As much as I want to know army compositions of certain armies in China, I love the Asian stuff. I love the Asian stuff. The information doesn't exist. And if it does exist, you can't make heads or tails out of it because it's in another, not only another language, another, you know, the pictograms that they use, okay? But the information that you need to make accurate army list to the level of, say, Anglo-Saxons and Normans fighting each other isn't available. It doesn't exist. It may have existed at one point, and the Chinese emperor come in and burned a bunch of stuff down, and it just doesn't exist anymore. Or this stuff just wasn't written down to the level that we want as war gamers. So those guys, the WRG guys, pioneered coming up with the army list through the years of WRG and DBA and DBM and all that stuff. So if you go and create another set of rules, you're going to have to pull things out of thin air, or you're going to have to plagiarize their research. There's really no other way around it. You can't go and say, well, I'm going to study battles in ancient China and I'll be able to make the army list for something from the Three Kingdoms Chinese. This stuff isn't available. You have to do a significant amount of guesswork. And it's a shame that the information isn't available. So with that said, if I was going to create a set of ancient ancient rules, which I'm not going to, but if I was, what I would just simply do is say, okay, the army lists are the same from DBA 3.0. I'm going to provide no army lists. So that forces you to have to buy DBA 3.0. So I'm not taking any of his money, although nobody's really making any money on this stuff. But just the principle of it, I'm not taking the authors any of his money because you still have to buy his product. And but here's the rules as I see them. And that way everybody wins. And I, of course, charge nothing for my rules. You know, I just want to play a better game. If I was to do something like that, that's how I would go about it. So, anyhow, I don't know if that answers your question, but that's truly how I feel about it. Don't ask me how I feel about something. I might just tell you. Thanks for your comprehensive answer, Tony. By the way, I did get my wet palette out today and painted some World War II infantry. Yes, that's a win. You win. You want me to show me some of my World War II guys? Oh, you talked me into it. I don't know if you're still online because I can tell how many people are on there. I just can't tell who those people are. I'm going to assume you're still on, and I'm going to show you some WW2 guys. because I know where they are. I think I know where they are. Oh, I thought I knew where they are. The secret to victory is don't give up. If you give up, you don't find what you're looking for. We might just have to leave that for another installment. Well, I did pick up my room and maybe I just hid them away really, really well. Where did they go? Is this them? Here they are. Okay. Hidden in plain sight. World War II. Love World War II stuff. Love World War II. Okay. All right. Let's see what we got here. So these are in an old, I want to say like a Raoul Partha figure case that has like little foam inserts and stuff like that. Now, I'm not very proud of the basing job I did on this because this is before I discovered all these wonderful products that they have now. But these were still painted. This is some of the stuff that I painted when my painting style changed in the late 90s to what I would call a good level. This is the stuff that I painted. And I would still be happy with the paint quality of these figures here. Let's get some guys on here. Some of these bastard Nazi guys. Can't have World War II without Nazi guys. At least that's me. I always do the European stuff. So we'll get some of them. And then we can talk about my favorite figure sculptor of all time, ever, that's ever been, that ever will be. Okay. We'll start with these Nazi bastards. I know, they're just Wehrmacht, whatever. All right. Let's get these guys a little closer. These are my favorite figures ever made by my favorite sculptor ever. So this is a sculptor, This is a sculptor named Dave Alsop, and this is the combat figures range in 20 millimeter for World War II. We got some Wehrmacht guys here, Wehrmacht, okay? And let's see if we can just zoom out a little bit, not that much. Jeez, this thing's got a mind of its own. Okay, and I'm just going to move the phone because it's hard to get these guys. So I've definitely painted these guys one at a time. But yeah, using basically the same method that I use now. These were probably painted around 1997, 98, 99. Okay, and I play skirmish games. So each one of my guys has, bam, their name on the back. Okay, so this is Gefreiter Larsen. And, we got Olszewski and Kranke, Wirth, and Keller. Okay, so they each have a name, and this is for skirmish gaming because, when we play, you're only running like 5 guys. We're not trying to do some huge platoon type thing, but I haven't done World War II gaming since before DBA, and I probably will never go. And you can see my basing is really, basic. It's just paint with, you just put them in a little sprinkle thing and come out. It was before, look, there's not even Litco stands anymore. It's just, they're mounted on pennies. Although they make penny guys that are magnetized, so if I got back into this, I'd probably rebase them all and I'd be perfectly happy with how they looked. So, although they're a little red-faced compared to how I paint now. I would have to repaint them. We would just paint new figures, whatever. But I was out of this for so long that some figure manufacturers I have went out of production. I bought them brand new, and by the time I happened to check on them like last year, like they're totally out of production. And I'm like, what happened? Another figure, these are combat miniatures, by the way, which I believe were called Hotspur or something like that in the UK. And another figure manufacturer that I like a lot is a manufacturer called, it used to be called Drew's Militia. I think they went out of business or rebranded all their stuff. And let's see if we can see some Drew's Militia guys here. My Americans are all the way on the bottom, so we're going to get the Russian mortar team here. A couple guys here. Happy little mortar. Am I missing a guy? I'm missing one more. Where is he? Where is that commie bastard? There's a leader, and he's cool looking too. Here he is. Here's that leader. Okay. 82 millimeter Russian mortar. You got one guy that's like, I don't want to hear it anymore. And the other thing that changed, the one thing that did change is I used to double seal these guys with semi-gloss because I thought I looked better. So these all have a semi-gloss painting on them. So that's easy to fix. If I was going to refurbish these guys, you know, just flat coat them. Just do some of that brush on flat and we should be good. And then redo their bases and they would look, you know, I'd be really happy with them. But yeah, so I've got probably, I probably have a company of, wait a second, let me make sure I do this right. I probably have a platoon of Germans or a platoon plus of Germans. And I probably have short of a platoon of Americans. And I have a few Soviets. I started doing the Soviets first, and then kind of got sidetracked. I did the Americans because I have a whole scenario book that had a lot of skirmish scenarios that involved the Germans and the Americans. So I was building one of the scenarios for that. But these combat miniatures have some, and the Drew's Militia as well have a lot of personality. And see if we can get some Americans here. Who's this guy down here? No, that's another damn German. Anyhow, so yeah, so I've got these. This is the scale I like to do World War II, and I like to count grenades and that kind of stuff. I like to do the really small scale stuff because that's what interesting things really happen. Really interesting things happen, but. Maybe at some point in my life I'll get back to doing that. I have tons of lead unpainted, but no real reason to do them other than to delve into a period that I have to supply all the stuff for. So I haven't been really in a hurry to do that. So that's why I haven't really touched those things. There's a lot of production that has to go into doing that, but yeah, that's the stuff that I like. I like all that kind of stuff, and of course, if I were to get in it now, I mean, I can't play a World War II skirmish game with everything I know now and not film them. Oh, we'd have to film everything because there's crazy stuff that's going to happen. And, you know, I like the kind of games where it's like, all right. What do you want to do? Throw a grenade. Okay, roll to see where it lands. And then it lands in some crazy place and you blow up other guys you weren't planning on blowing up, you know, just movie moment kind of things. You know, that's what I want to get into if I'm going to play that type of skirmish. It looks like I'm locked into a closer zoom. There we go, perfect. Okay. Jeffrey Smith, what World War II rules do you use? I use nuts, small skirmishes, and can be played solo. So we were coming up with our own set of rules in the late 90s, and it was super anal retentive. And then we weren't getting anywhere because the person I was playing with was moving all over the place. I didn't have a steady Mitch. So during that time, a set of rules came out that were scary close to what we were coming up with. Scary close. It was almost like they were listening through. They were listening through Alexa, even though Alexa hadn't been discovered. No, they were not. But obviously they wanted the same similar type of game that we had. And the set of rules that I picked up was called the Face of Battle. Okay, and the Face of Battle is random activation. So you've got, you don't know who's going to activate first, and you go through each guy. And depending on the gist of the rules is, if you're talking regular generic quality troops, they have 2 chits for each figure. Okay, so let's say you have 2 squads on the board. Okay, a German squad and a Russian squad, and there's 10 men in each, just for simple purposes, and they're both of just kind of regular quality. So none of them are really crap. Each person is going to have 2 actions. So you have 10 figures on the German side with 2 chits. You throw those 20 chits in a bag, and you do the same thing with the Russians. So now you got 40 chits in this bag. You got 40 actions. Then you take any leaders that you may have. So maybe you have a squad leader and an assistant squad leader, and they have a chit each, or if you're really good, they might have 2 chits for one of them. That's their leader chit. Okay, you throw them in a bag. Okay. You got all the chits in the bag. We're not talking any vehicles yet. So you got all your chits in the bag, and see if we can get some painting done. I don't mind talking about this at all. I just, I'd like to have something to show for it at the end of the evening. You know what I'm saying? We got to keep moving forward, because if you guys want to see some Scottish Knights, we got to get these guys done. So anyway, so you got 40 chits in a bag, plus the leader counters, all right? So the game starts, obviously, after you set up and everything. Okay, I'm just talking about what the gist of the game is and how the pacing of it is. You pull a chit. So you pull some guy named Petrushkin, and he's a Russian private or whatever. So you activate him. What does he do? Does he move forward? Does he shoot? Does he, whatever his action is. When he's done, you pull another chit. And it could be the same guy again. It's not likely, because, think of the odds of the number of chits that we're talking about, right? Not likely that it's him. There's different ways to play Face of Battle. We just decided to play it one guy at a time, because that's what we want. We want like all eyes on that one guy. There's other ways where both players flip one guy from their own bag and they each move one. No. So in a nutshell, the rules don't have any opportunity fire. And that's what makes them really cool, is that you never have to worry about, because that's what makes some World War II games a pain in the ass, is you have to account for opportunity fire. Like, okay, I'm gonna move it. No. Well, before you do that, move the guys back. That's the stuff that's frustrating, takes a lot of time, and is bullshitty. But you're only moving one guy at a time. And that's how it goes through until you go through all the actions of someone, and then you go on to the next turn and you throw the chits back in. Obviously, if they're dead, the chit goes away, or when it comes up, it doesn't come into play. Now, what about the leader things? Okay, well, the leader things can be used to activate someone other than the leader, because the leader has his 2 actions as well, okay? So say you've got an assistant squad leader that or you say you have a squad leader that has a chit for him. When his chit comes up, someone within this radius, and we're talking about maybe a distance of about like this, we're talking like 2 or 3 inches, not some huge amount. Somebody he's close to can go again. So theoretically, you could have someone go, say, 3 times in that turn. So what do? That encourages you to put the squad leader or something near like a support weapon, like maybe an MG42 that you want to keep firing, because the guns will jam. So it takes an action to unjam it and stuff like that. If you've got a squad leader and you get the activation, he can order one of the guys to unjam it. And then when he comes back up again, he can fire. So it's that kind of interaction, decision making, that is really core to the rule system. And it doesn't move fast, so it's not geared for everybody, but it has the kind of detail that we wanted. But that's really suited well for somewhere we can leave set up and play it, a couple weeks at a time, kind of thing. And we didn't have that set up at that time when those rules came out. Now, I've told Mitch this, is that if you want to play World War II, we could probably do it. We'll do with those rules. We can leave it set up. He's got a place we can leave set up for weeks on end, But it's just too easy to play games with DBA, to get involved in all that, If I want to play World War II that bad, I'll play something else. I'll play a video game or a computer game, So Does that answer your question? I really like the rules, but I think that it's just too long ago to go back to doing stuff like that. Like if somebody said, "Hey, let's play a game." All right, cool. Well, let's do it in the old days, like where we used to play on the floor and sit on the floor. No, I'm not sitting on the floor for shit. Okay, it's not that I can't, that I'm in that bad of shape. It's just that it isn't worth it anymore. You know. Anyhow, so Kevin says I'm frowning because I paint, but no one to play with in Arizona. No. James Shevlin, I'm in the UK. So opponents and clubs are much nearer than USA. Kevin, fortunately, I do enjoy playing solo given the current chimes. Tony, your World War II models look fabulous. Thank you. Um, Doing my later Imperial Roman army, how would you paint white shirts? Later Imperial Roman. I suspect you're talking about like your auxilia that have white shirts, and then they have like either a trim on the bottom, or they have kind of like these round emblems kind of in the quarter panels or whatever. I would do the same thing. I would use whatever your darkener is and mix your white with it to where you've got a color that's similar to this, and then just start bringing it up to white as you bring in the shades. That's how I would do it. I don't do any of the dip stuff, so yeah. Yeah, so my World War II rules that I like to play are super anal retentive and they move really slow. But the way I look at it is, if I'm going to spend this much time painting each figure and giving them character, then I want the game to reflect the same amount of detail. There's no point in playing, in my opinion, Warhammer, okay? A game that the figures are really expensive. They could take a long time playing, and then you just roll a shitload of dice, and then the figures are on the board, and then you take them off. Like, okay, why did I spend that much time painting the figures? I didn't even get to enjoy seeing them on the board for a while. That's just my outlook on it. And, you know, maybe a lot of people wouldn't agree with me. Be like, your game takes too long to play. Who the hell wants to play? Well, it's not that kind of game. If I want to play a quick World War II game, if I want to play a quick World War II game, I'm going to fire up the computer and play some of that Close Combat series. That shit's awesome. Okay, that's like the best. That's like I love that game growing up. If you could have that game as a multiplayer game with multiple people on the same time, that would be the stuff to play. Because I am the World War II guy. I mean, that's what I live and breathe, or used to. So, but yeah. So the vehicle. So talking more about the rules. So if you kind of understand how the pacing of those rules are, the vehicles are. This is crazy. This is a mind-blowing thing. All those chits you just threw in, you throw in 10 other chits, okay? And those 10 other chits are numbered 1 through 10. Go figure, right? But they're vehicle movement segment speed things. So you have like a chart that your vehicle's on that tells you who's buttoned up or what have you, and all the figures in the vehicle also have an action. So you could use a vehicle, but you can't use a ton of them because the game would last forever. But your vehicle's set moving at a certain speed. When that impulse comes up, all those vehicles move at the same speed the way they're facing. Or I think you could make minor adjustments. So basically, when the driver's comes up of your vehicle through a normal play, that's when you can adjust your speed up, you can adjust your speed down, you can do this, that, and the other. You can make maybe big turns, you can button, unbutton, that kind of stuff. But you can't go in and set your vehicle as going really fast, because what will happen is your vehicle's going to run off the board, or it's going to be time to turn and he misses the turn and slams into a tree. So you've got this interplay of everything. Like you cross the street, but don't cross in front of the vehicle because the vehicle may go next and you get run over, kind of thing. So there's all kinds of interplay and randomness that you can't control, and we like that. We like those kind of random craziness because they make really good story. They make a great narrative, and that's when we're playing World War II. We want a good narrative. So. But I haven't run one of those games since 2004 before I got into DBA. So, but then I'm stressed out because I have to supply all the vehicles and buildings and all the figures, and I got to worry about somebody steals one of my figures. And I actually I lost one of my figures. I don't know how it happened or who took it, but I wish that person the best. But yeah, one of my figures came up missing. So that's just, I don't need that. I don't need that in my life, you know. If I really wanted to play World War II skirmish, I'd go in the back room, set up my own battle, and I would do it solitaire and I'd film it, and it would make a good narrative. And it would take just however long it would take, you know. But that's just too much work. You know how much DBA games I could be doing instead of that? So right now we're needed on the DBA front. We're not needed to go off on all these side projects. That's the way I look at it. I mean, that's why I'm playing every week, because we play other games over at Mitch's house. But I just basically got like the point is, if I'm going to spend my 1 day a week that I can game with, I'm going to play DBA and I want to film it because that's going to benefit other people as well. It's like we are fortunate enough that we have DBA players that know how to play the game, that like how to play the game, and people are starving for, you know, for answers, and that's kind of what we need to focus on.
Should we have dinner without you?
You ready?
Yeah, it's 5:30. I texted you. You could eat later if you're not ready. You could eat later if you're not ready.
Okay, well that's it. That's I have been called to dinner, so this is enough of a ramble. It was over 3.5 hours, and during that time, I didn't even get one figure painted. But that's okay. We're gonna finish this guy up later, and but anyhow, this has been real. Hopefully, you guys had a good time. I certainly did. I always enjoy talking about other things, even if it's not necessarily this stuff that the DBA stuff that we're working on. So, but yeah, let's see. It is 5:30. I may be on later tonight because I do want to get some stuff going, and I appreciate all the interaction that you guys provided with me. Hopefully, I gave you guys some interaction as well that you know, that's helpful. And you know, as always, good painting, and we'll see you guys on the flip side. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel. That helps a lot. That just allows visibility for other people to see it, and you know, and allows you to ease of uploading your videos on that format as well. Kind of gives you priority. So I appreciate if you guys would subscribe to my channel. Much appreciated. Okay, next time we'll catch you on the flip side. See you, folks. Happy painting.